This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to an extremely hot day here in Djuma Game Reserve, the first location of many across Africa that you will see today for your afternoon live safari. Now, I have a funny feeling that everybody's going to complain about the heat. I have heard that it is 40 degrees Celsius and 100,000 million degrees Fahrenheit. Yes, it's very hot. We're all melting. But my name is Lauren, and I do have Cat on camera, and we're just at Treehouse Dam admiring these lovely little lapwing chicks. They are absolutely adorable. Blacksmith lapwings, of course. But because we're live and interactive, you must send in your comments and questions. We want to hear from you. Your lovely comments, of course. You are welcome to now head over to our website, wildearth.tv, and you can now send in your questions that way, in order for us to streamline your questions. So I am very excited today about our live safari. And here we are, still boiling, but it's worth it. These two little chicks are adorable. I don't actually know how many eggs the adult laid this time round, but I do know that there are two chicks remaining, and sadly they don't have the highest of all survival rates, blacksmith lapwings. But they stay with the parents. Both adults are here and they're being incredibly noisy. Noise will attract attention, I'm afraid, and that's maybe one of the reasons that they don't have the sort of highest survival rate. But mom can lay 4 eggs, so whether she laid 4 or not, we do not know, but there's 2 chicks remaining here. And there's another chick that I have to go and see, of course. The Wig family. I believe James got very, very lucky this morning and saw the chick on his own. So I've got another wonderful diagram for you all, and I'm going to head straight into the Mulwati and say good afternoon to our precious owl family. They are absolutely adorable. They just look like cute, fluffy mini adults. So, off and into the Mulwati we go.
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome from a very warm and beyond Panthera Private Game Reserve, where underneath the shade of that scented pod you might just be able to see a little tawny blob in the shade, and that is a very fat lioness that is trying her absolute best to keep cool. My name is Damon, and behind the camera we have got Craig this afternoon, and we're not very far from the lodge at all. We've stopped by this little area where we saw a lioness this morning, and we just wanted to see if she was still around before we head off into those open plains again this afternoon. There we go, the lioness just lifted her head. Did you see how she just lifted her head there? Just saw the little black tips on the backs of her ears. And just looking through my binoculars, have a look at how her belly is heaving up and down. Just a result of how hot it is here this afternoon. And unfortunately, where Craig and I are sitting, there's not really much shade. So for us to film her, we're going to have to tough it out here in the sun. Luckily, there's a bit of a breeze blowing over our backs from the northeast. But shame, this poor lioness looks very, very uncomfortable in this heat. I suppose the upside is that her tummy looks full, so she's obviously eaten something. And interestingly, this morning I had said that I thought that this lioness was one of the younger adult lionesses that was pregnant, but on closer inspection it does not appear to be her. It's one of the sub-adult lionesses. And it's rather unusual that she's by herself, because she's normally in the company of some of the other members of this pride of lions. At the very least in the company of her sister, who's also obviously a sub-adult lioness. And they have been moving around together. Penelope, you're saying she's panting quite a bit. Her tummy's really heaving up and down, Penelope. I'm glad that you can see that through the camera. And yeah, just a result of how hot it is here, and because of also that full tummy of hers. And for her, that's the only way that she can keep cool, is by panting. And of course also lying in the shade there. But she keeps, look how she just lifted her head there. I think something's maybe crawling around her there. I'm just looking carefully. She's looking down at the ground. I think there's something maybe crawling around there, maybe some dung beetles. Craig and I are going to try for a slightly different view of her from the other side, where we're not looking directly into the sun, and where we can hopefully get a little bit of a better look at her, because she is a really pretty lioness. So we'll let you know once we've repositioned.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Djuma Private Game Reserve, to your very own live safari from the African wilderness. This afternoon, sitting in this very beautiful waterhole with a warthog bathing. My name is Andrew. On camera, I have Neil this afternoon, at the beginning of the drive, taking you into one of the waterhole. Right now we're sitting with a warthog, or young warthog, I must say, still young animal. But of course everybody feels very hot. Today the temperature has risen. So 38 degrees 101 Fahrenheit. That's slightly higher as a normal. We're animals that they mostly like to wallow in the mud. Warthog is one of them. Elephants swim in a dirty water bath. Buffaloes, a rhino as well. That very young warthog, probably separated from the rest of the group, from the sound of the group, found herself, looks like a little girl, but enjoying bath. It's all about the cooling off. Good afternoon, Rosalind. You want to know how big is a warthog tusk? So the male, they grow a couple of inches, so probably what I would put around maybe 110 mil longer. So they're actually slightly, but they're curved up, slightly face forward. And that's a male. Sometimes also both female grow tusk as well, but they don't actually develop big as a male get. Remember, the tuskers are also a weapon. They use them for their self-defense. when they get attacked. Warthog, they're also one of the animals that hardly see or see a properly neck in them. That's why it's actually very difficult for leopard to get to suffocate. Get hold of the airway is always impossible, all covered with very strong, hard muscles. Remember everyone, this is your live show. We will also like to hear from you. Remember to drop your questions at #WildEarth at FC, also under the age, kids questions at wildearth.tv. And then from there we will be answering your questions. It's pretty actually hot out here today, but at least the wind is blowing a bit. So we're going to be checking quite a few water holes just to see what is all about. Usually animals like elephants and buffalo, they're more likely to be lying in one of these water holes just for their own rest. So I'm going to be taking you over another live safari.
A warm welcome to a beautiful day here at Ambion and Carlos. We're looking at a saddle-billed stork that's moving just past this one particular waterhole. And just notice the colors and the way that it is moving. Maybe what it's doing, there's another section of water on the other side, so it might just go all the way across to try and get to that section of water. But notice the color of the eye. So if you see, you can notice a yellow colorish eye. And that's because it's a female. The males have more of a brown color, and underneath that red and black bill, they have a wattle that you can also see. So this is a female, and what she might be doing is, let's carefully look. Sometimes because we are near water, there's a chance that there could be some tadpoles nearby that it can go for, maybe some insects in the water, maybe little fish. So I'm Nikki, I'm going to be your ranger for this afternoon, and on camera we have Owen. Now as we were sitting here and watching that saddle-billed stork, there was also another interesting pair of geese inside this particular waterhole. So we're just going to go in to have another look. And then also a couple of swallows that are coming to drink. But this is one that's often... It's like the impala of the bush. It's mainly seen in South Africa. It's called the Egyptian goose. And the reason for the name Egyptian goose, apparently it's one of the most widespread water birds in Africa, and the Egyptians were the first to domesticate them. Hence the name. You'll see now and again a swallow coming down, dipping into the water. I just want to have a look. There might be some bee eaters here as well. Let me just have a look. There could be some European bee eaters. Oh, there's a few that just dipped in the water. So where those geese were, I don't know if everyone saw, but you can see a few. Oh, there's a few that just flew across. Now they're really hard to follow. And also I don't want to make the viewers a bit of seasick, because they do move quite quickly. But it looks like they might even be taking a bath. You'll see them just dipping in the water and then flying off again. But for now, Owen and I are going to carry on. Maybe go explore other waterholes like this and see if there's any chance of maybe elephants or maybe buffalo going down for a drink, or might be cooling themselves down.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a beautiful sunny afternoon here in Tswalu, Kalahari. My name is Moritz, by the way, guys. Behind the camera we have David, and we've got some very relaxed giraffes this afternoon. As you can see, the one is lying down. Both of them were actually lying down until a moment ago. The one just got up, and it's quite interesting to see them when they lie down like that. With giraffe, they have quite the short sleeping cycle during a 24-hour day. They say that they only effectively sleep for about 20 minutes every 24 hours. You will find them, however, doing that during the warm parts of the day, or just when their bellies are full, when they're busy ruminating. So what they do is, when they lie down like that, their necks has to be upright like it is right now, just because they've got a 25 kilogram heart that pumps the blood all the way upstairs. Now, as soon as the head goes parallel or below the heart doesn't stop pumping at that rate. So all of the blood rushes down to the head. Now, luckily, they've got a little valve just behind the ear that regulates the blood flow to and from the head, but it will only be able to withstand the pressure for a certain amount of time. So as soon as it's below the heart for a little bit too long, it's going to push through, and it's going to, flood the brain with blood, which will make the giraffe very dizzy, possibly pass out, and that could be fatal for him. So very important for them to lie in that awkward position if they do lie down. But like I said, sleeping only effectively for about 20 minutes every 24 hours. A very, very strong power nap. The rest of the time, they'll find them lying down there like that. And they do say that with giraffe, they can, just like whales, during the day when they're chilling like this, switch off certain parts of their brain just to reboot the system so that they don't burn out. But for the herbivores, it's very much a case of resting rather than sleeping, because, as soon as those eyes go shut, the predators are prowling. So it's very important for them to be aware of their surroundings at any given time. But yeah, always special to see them lying down like that. They are in quite a vulnerable position when they do lie down. As you can imagine, standing up with those long legs is quite awkward. So for them to allow us to see them lying down like that is quite special. This one is a young male. All three of them actually young males. There was two together and then one off to the right. But he was just behind a tree. So yeah, guys, our plan for this afternoon is to go and find some cheetah. We are going to find some tracks now and follow those until we find them. So as soon as we do that, we'll go show you. But for the meantime, we're going to move on to those tracks again and send you off somewhere else.
Good luck, Mo, with your cheetah search. I would also like some spotted cats, but I have a feeling it's far too hot to find any cats. I will try, though. On our way to Sebwick's house, we have came across a lone bull. Caked in mud. Look at that skin. Looks like he needs a really, really good scrub or exfoliation or just a bath. But of course, this is intentional. On hot days like this, you actually want to have wrinkly skin. No more Botox. No, you want those wrinkles because they have a purpose. They're actually there to retain water. Each little wrinkle, even on the soles of the feet, retain water. Not just water, muddy, moist, wet mud would also stick in the wrinkles. And considering the skin of an elephant is about 4 centimeters thick, these wrinkles hold in moisture, and it's said to hold in about 5 to 10 times more than would any flat surface. So by holding in the moisture, it's assisting in keeping you cool on days like today. That's exactly what you want. The more wrinkles, the better. And African elephants actually have a lot more wrinkles than Asian elephants do. And that's because, well, it's slightly more hotter and drier on the African continent than it is in Asia. It gets very hot in Asia too. It's a lot more humid over there. Isn't he gorgeous? He's definitely been splashing. I don't know what dam he's been visiting, but he's definitely been visiting one of them. You can see he's slightly wet. Ria? You're asking, can elephants see in the dark? Yes, they can. They're not really they don't see in the dark as well as maybe the predators do. because they're not essentially classified as, oh, my car's rolling, I'm going to put my handbrake on, as nocturnal. But yes, they can see in the dark. Absolutely, they can. They move in the dark. They do feed in the dark. Elephants sort of move, feed, drink all 24 hours long. But they generally have quite bad eyesight. So they say that an elephant's eyeball is a similar size to a human's. Now, if you look at the size of the likes of my head compared to the size of an elephant's head, you can see that it's not in proportion at all. So what that tells you is that elephants don't primarily rely on eyesight. And this is because they have far keener sensories. They have fantastic hearing, fantastic sense of smell. They can feel vibrations on the ground. So they don't necessarily need to really utilize their eyesight. So they're said to only see about 50 meters approximately in front of them. And they're slightly short-sighted. Slightly, just like I used to be before I got mine zapped. They're also said to have a blind spot where that optic nerve meets the retina, just like we do. So their eyesight's not perfect. Along the process of natural selection that I was talking about the other day, it strives for the strongest traits that enhances an animal's survival. So an elephant's survival is absolutely fine because it's got so many other senses to rely on. It can communicate over great distances with one another, completely out of our human range that we cannot hear. And feeling vibrations on the ground. Can you imagine that? Being able to stand with the soles of your feet on the ground, understanding vibrations. Humans definitely don't have that ability. So therefore, why waste energy in the evolutionary process of keeping an elephant with fantastic eyesight when it doesn't need it? And I think we're losing sight of this elephant now. I may be able to catch up with it. It's the lone bull about to walk along the southern boundary of Gowrie, Maine. I was actually hoping to see some elephants swimming today. So we're going to let this bull enjoy his day. I have a funny feeling he's going to cross into Little Gowrie, and we're heading to Sedgwick's house now.
So we're having a look at a herd of elephants that have just found a nice mud wallow. And you can see the shine on their back, so that's just the sunlight reflecting off. So they're basically taking trunkfuls of mud and then flicking it onto their back and on the side. And you'll see even the youngsters were rolling in it a bit earlier. See the one just off to the right, just grabbing some mud with its trunk and then splashing it and spraying it onto its belly, and also onto its back and around the ears. Now there is, look at the vegetation between us and the elephant. You see how it's moving? So there is a little breeze that is blowing. Oh, there's the babies in the back. Now that small one that's now just turned around. Earlier on it was rolling in the mud and the mom just had to help him get back onto his feet. But so there is a breeze blowing, and imagine with this elephant just covering itself with that nice patch of mud as well as a bit of water, and now you have this breeze blowing over them. It helps to cool them down so much. Hopefully they don't move away, because if they carry on moving to the right, we might not be able to see them, so we'll follow them as long as we possibly can. Now it might be that this one, just here closer towards us, might be a bull. It's very hard to see, especially from the angle in the sunlight that we have to work with here. But noticing it, and why I say so, is because it looked quite a lot bigger than some of the females that were closer around the water with it. But it also could be a big female. I couldn't see the head. And I would really love to encourage our viewers, if you have any question, please send them through. Finak, the biggest herd of elephants I've ever seen, probably, I've seen quite a lot of elephants in Botswana and the Tulu block. I've seen maybe close to 100 together in one group. But here in Ambient Ngala, I've also seen herds of nearly 150, possibly even 200 elephants moving through an area, which is quite a sight to see. Now let's see, if those elephants keep on moving, we might have to carry on and hopefully be able to find some more elephants. Because what they do from there, so the direction they're moving is they're basically moving straight towards the dry riverbed. Maybe to go and have dig for some water, because even with where they were now, because of the water being so muddy, they won't be able to drink it. They'll just use it to cool themselves down, and then hopefully continue feeding until they find some fresh water. But with those elephants moving on, maybe that's what we should do as well. And just slowly carry on and see if we can find some other animals. Now, because it is nice and warm, most likely we'll be focusing on things like elephants and possibly herds of buffalo. Let's see if we can get a bigger herd of elephants. But hopefully as it starts cooling down, we'll start looking out for some of the predators, maybe leopard, lions. Always a little treat to see wild dogs around, or maybe even cheetah. And then, of course, just carry on into a night drive and see what we can get.
Alrighty guys, so we are on our way to where the tracks of those two male cheetahs should be. But look at this little cutie first. We call them a ground squirrel. They've got a big fluffy tail. We can't see the tail at the moment. Well, you can, but it's not as impressive when it's lying flat on the ground. And these guys quite often share their burrow systems with the meerkats. We actually saw that this morning, where the meerkats started popping out, and about 15 minutes later, we had one of the ground squirrels also coming out of the same burrow. So with them being, more vegetarian, and the meerkats being only insect eating and let's say carnivorous, there is no competition between one another for food or for anything like that. So with that being the case, they quite often operate together like this, sharing den sites, burrow systems. They won't go out and forage together because they're looking for different things, but the more eyes and ears they have around them, looking out for danger, the better. But yeah, very, very, very cool. They have a polygamous social system. So you'll find a group of females living together and a group of males living together, and then they'll go and find one another and mate with each other and go and, raise their little ones elsewhere.
I am not the only one complaining about the heat today. My cameraman is too. No, I'm joking. Tandy girl. She does not look happy with the heat. She's panting. She's been snarling, but not at us. I think she's just angry at the heat. You get a little bit grumpy when you're too tired and too hot, and imagine being a leopard in this heat. I have not seen Tandy in quite some time, everyone. Hello, beautiful. Oh my goodness. For leopards, it can be easy. They will not move, really. I didn't actually think we would see a spotted cat today. I eat my words. I didn't think we would see any cats, but it must be cool here. Just at the sort of very southern point of the Mulwati, in the shade, against the embankment. It still can't be pleasant. You really won't see much movement in this heat. She may go for a drink. We're very close to twin dams. But other than that, it's far too hot. Now, I talk about this a lot, but really what she's doing, just like your domestic dog or cat at home, she's panting to cool down. It's very efficient. Not so efficient for humans, I don't recommend it, but for animals like this, it's very efficient. Opening her mouth. She doesn't need to go or flutter like birds. No, she just needs to pant. And that moist environment in her mouth is going to help her lose heat. And it is quite an efficient way of doing that. And of course, seeking shade, doing everything you can to cool down, considering the fact that you're covered in hair. She looks old, and she is old. She's 14 and fantastic. But you can see, a lot of people ask, how do you age a leopard? So let's just go through it. If you did not know this was Tandy, we do, of course, but let's say we didn't. Take a look at her ears. Her ears are in quite rough condition. They've got notches and scratches, and see that at the very, very top of the ear? That's one sign that she's an older leopardess. And then let's look at the teeth. My goodness, she needs to go see a dentist. They're very yellow, and you can see they're worn down completely. They're flat at the ends there, no longer sharp and pointy as they should be. And that's another sign that she's a much older leopardess. Those are the two sort of things you would really, really look at when you're trying to gauge the age of a leopard. And also, she has a very saggy tummy. Now, we can't see this here, but she has given birth to 7 litters. So if she was standing up, you would be able to sort of look at that tummy and know, this female has given birth multiple times, which again would suggest that she's an older leopardess. I didn't get that name, but you're asking, could a leopard fight a lion? I highly doubt it. A leopard would flee. They're very fast and nimble and light on their feet, so they would completely flee the scenario. Lions are much taller, even a lioness and a male lion. They're much heavier. The muscle mass on a lion compared to a leopard is remarkable. So they're stronger, yes. They can also run fast in short bouts. So if a lion caught a leopard, then I think a lion would absolutely win, unfortunately. But leopards are quick and fast and flexible and nimble, so they would flee the scene completely. They would not engage in battle. It would not be worth their time, I'm afraid. Especially Tandy, she's very petite. When you see a male and female leopard together, it's incredible the difference between the two. When you see them separately, it's hard to imagine. But when you see leopards mating, that's when you can really see the difference. Female leopards are so much smaller. Very petite, slim animals. There's a butterfly flying behind Tandy. Should we try and ID it? You ready for a challenge? Okay. Have you got it? There we go. Are we able to get any closer? Oh, Tandy's not very happy. Can we try and get closer to the butterfly? No? Spas, good to hear from you. I didn't catch the question, no. I'll get Gwen to repeat it one more time. Spas, I'm more than sure that you are aware they love to stay away from the heat. They're hot. Look how hot she is. It's so uncomfortable. 40 degrees Celsius. 1,000,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, she's covered in hair. Not got sweat glands like we do. Some cats do sort of release a little bit of liquid from the underside of their foot, from the pads. They don't have the same mechanisms that we do. So she's positioned herself very, very nicely in the shade. But yes, 100% she wants to avoid the heat. And they don't need to drink every day, leopards. They're not completely water dependent. But on a hot day like this, I would imagine she'll need to hydrate. And at some point she will move to twin dams to lap up the H2O. Oh, well done. Okay, I do know this one. But I am going to have to get my butterfly kit out that I have been using as a fan. This came in very, very handy. I used to be very good at identifying butterflies, but sadly, I have lost my way. If any of you can get to it before me, send it in the comments section. What species of butterfly do we have here? Oh, I think I've got it. Now, from the underside of the wing, of course this is not the top side, it looks like it could be the dark webbed ringlet. But I don't know if I've seen this one before. I definitely don't have it on my list. So any of you butterfly experts out there, especially you, James Richard, please do send it in and FC will pass it on to me. It definitely looks like it could be the dark webbed ringlet, which will be number 4 on my growing list of butterflies for this summer. Sorry, Tandy, we're back to you. Yes, I'm sorry. There's a remarkable similarity in my eyes between Tandy and Hosanna. Now, they're only half related, but I see similarities in them. I don't know if you all agree. Oh, goodness. I wish I could help her cool down. But she will be used to this. 14 years old, every summer will be this hot. Every winter will be cold. I wonder where her son is. It looks like she's singing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, I haven't had a good look at the tummy, but from this angle, it does look quite full. Not bulging, but I don't think she's starving. Okay, well, at least Tandy's in the shade. However, we are not, but we are going to sit here and watch her sleep.
Great, well done, Lauren, finding. Since we're on search along the northern boundaries and nothing, no tracks, cats. We're expecting really to see if maybe probably lions came in, but I came across very much interesting trees over here, which what you see, especially that I'm holding on right now. All you see is that you witness how soft the leaves are. And this is actually a weeping wattle trees. Or weeping wattle comes to the name where they pick up the name from this tree. Usually, when you come sit underneath of this tree during a hot day, all you feel is a dripping. So it's a tree whip. But it's called Panthera africana. Specific name. It's well actually used, especially the leaves in out here. So as you know, every tree is a lever tree. So a toilet paper tree. So it's so important when you're out there, you don't have to carry anything like paper. Everything goes back to the ecosystem after you use it. And then of course you can see some of this tree doesn't actually well develop, so bigger because of a lot of disturbed from the elephants, kudus and things. But if you look there, you're able to see this particular branch is still small, but it's a little of the seed is forming up on this sea here, nowhere else. I think it's going to be everywhere soon, but sometimes it shows the beautiful yellow flowers, and that flower is loved by the honeybees, and those kind of like other small beetles, as a fruit beetles as well, for their own benefit, suck their juices and gives lives for somebody. Platyphoria africana, the name of the tree, it's pretty much everywhere, I guess, all throughout the reserve. It's well-known trees, and everybody can able to use this. Sometimes it goes very big, decent tree, but sometimes you find very small, but the very slow growing trees anyway. Doesn't actually grow fast at all. For some local village, we actually use the roots for some remedy. The sangomas will actually mix all of the trees or plants out here. Sangoma need them, use them to heal some of the diseases, which is some disease are STD diseases, which is Jay, you want to know what kind of animal will eat this leaf? So elephants seen pretty much feeding on it. I haven't seen actually kudu feeding on them. Elephant, giraffe, they'll get to the top of the tree as a, height enough. And then from there, they were able to take right to the end of the branches. But they actually feed on that just because of the new growth of the branches, so soft for them to be able to eat. So, but yeah, elephant, giraffe, and then most of the other browsers animals. We don't have much of a black rhino here, but actually black rhino would be able to do that. But deep bark, the actually base of the tree, the trunk usually, the bark itself, comium layer, it comes so important for the elephants. Sometimes you find a lot of these bark from the trunk itself, and then just for their own benefit. And then, of course, that comes so much destruction for everywhere in the reserve. But in a point of view, you can actually look around all trees that are down. It's elephants, but for return, it actually brings a lot of benefit from the young animal that they can actually able to reach the top. So I'm going to carry on my search around here again, and then I'm going to be taking you off safari.
We managed to reposition. We're in the shade. All three of us now are in the shade. Thank goodness. We love to complain about weather. It's either too cold or too rainy or too hot, It wouldn't be a live safari if we didn't complain. I think it's actually too hot to sleep. She needs to pant. And by sleeping, then she won't be able to actively pant. So I don't even think Tandy's able to rest. Our probably biggest bout of rest today is going to come when the sun starts to go down just marginally. And you get relief. That's when Tandy might find sort of comfort in sleeping. So I mentioned earlier she's on her 7th litter. She did have 2, but sadly, one did not survive, and she has got a son. Now that was from March, and we're now in November. So she doesn't need to stay with her son all the time. They separate for long bouts. And he's most likely homing in on his little hunting skills, catching anything small, tortoises, lizards, squirrels, anything he can get his paws on. Now, many of you know I'm fascinated with Latin names. I absolutely cannot speak Latin in any shape or form. But I love the fact that every name has a meaning and it's chosen specifically for that organism. And a leopard, as many of you know, is Panthera Pardus. Now, how that came about is long ago, they believed that a leopard was actually a hybrid. I'm talking very long ago, between a lion and a panther. So lion in Greek is leon, and that's where Leo comes from. And panther is Pardus. So they thought that long ago, leopards were a hybrid. And of course they're not. They're not at all. They're their own species. But that's where the name Panthera Pardus comes from. And yes, she is related to Karula, the great Karula. Oh, we're getting a little bit antsy there, Tandy, aren't we? She's Karula's daughter. So she's part of the Karula lineage, and of course so is Hosanna. So that's actually what I meant when I referenced that I see similarities. It's across the eyes. Nowhere else really, but across the eyes I do see similarities in Tandy and Hosanna. I think you can just tell that they're related, and of course they are related. They're both offspring of Karula, different fathers, so... And of course, Karula had a huge territory, and she was a very, very successful leopardess. Lincoln, their teeth are just worn down. They're not broken. They're just very, very worn down. As canines are used to pierce through flesh. And the chokehold, or when you're trying to suffocate the prey, that's what they're used for. So 14 years down the line, as a remarkable huntress, Tandy has, of course, worn her teeth down, which is completely normal. The older a cat, and it's not just for leopards, for lions as well, the teeth will wear down. They don't live as long as we do, so by the age of 14, and all the hunting that she's done, they've sadly started to wear down, but it won't affect her hunting strategies. They're just not as sharp as they used to be. Now, mothers have to shift to make room for their daughters, and that's why Tandy's territory's slightly shifted, and she's given a portion of it to Tlalamba. So it's better for her to sort of border the territory with her daughter than be it a stranger. And when Karula passed away, unfortunately, her territory was so large that it didn't just go to Tandy. Tandy didn't just come in and take over the entire territory. No, everyone has to shift. Everyone has to sort of shift around and get a piece. It doesn't just get handed down. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. Everything fits in, but a dynamic one. I always compare leopard territories to that screensaver you get on Mac. I don't know the name of it. You know that moving screensaver where it goes in tune to the music? Yeah, I'm having a bit of a mind blank here, but if anyone knows, please help me out. And that's always what I liken leopards' territories to. Very dynamic, constantly shifting, constantly moving. And Tandy definitely got a section of Karula's territory, but not at all. And Tandy's recent shift to make space for Tlalamba would then have a knock-on effect into Kuchava. So then Kuchava has to shift her territory, which would then have a knock-on effect onto another leopardess. So they're all constantly shifting to make space for each other. They don't yes, they're competing, but they also don't want to clash. They don't want to battle. And when Karula did pass, it left a huge vacuum because it was such a large territory. It was a real sort of vacuum in the area, mostly the middle of Juma. And sort of Tandy stepped into most of it. And then Kuchava sort of stepped into a bit of Tandy's. And then Sabui sort of shifted up north from the south. And Shadulu didn't actually get affected much back then, but she's definitely shifted since then. So they're constantly moving. But I believe when Karula passed, no new leopardesses came in. It's just the current leopardesses that they have, just moving around one another to fit into that big jigsaw puzzle. So we're not going to sit anywhere. We're going to continue to sit here and admire the Queen.
And driving along, we came past a big mud wallow, and in the mud were these two white rhinos rolling around. They have unfortunately now stood up and moved away though. I think they've had enough of rolling around in the mud. The temperature is dropping ever so slightly, and there's this lovely cool breeze blowing in from the northeast, and I think that that's just taken the edge off of the heat, and so the rhinos have decided that it's time to get up and carry on moving. Look at how covered in mud they are. And if you look closely, can you see that two-tone coloration on the back one? Just shows how far into the mud she was. Look at how it goes all the way up to her back. Doesn't look like she quite rolled over. Her back still looks pretty dry. But the front rhino, its entire body is dark. It must have been rolling onto its back, trying to get that mud all over itself. Must be so nice and cool, especially for such a big animal in this heat, to go and roll around in some mud, and then to stand up or just to lie in the breeze and have that wind blow over your back and cool you. Must be a wonderful feeling. I see why people pay so much money to go to mud spas. They're moving quite rapidly now, though. They seem to be on a bit of a mission. Just looking at the one in the front, he's got his nose to the ground, and he seems to just be following the scent of something. The female on the right, she keeps glancing back at us. Even now, look how she stops to turn to look back in our direction. She's got an ear listening in our direction too. And we're pretty far away from them, and I wonder, there's no doubt they would have noticed us moving in. They should have certainly heard us. They were moving in. They should have certainly heard us. Maybe she's still a bit unsure of us, though. The wind is blowing from her to us, and of course a rhino, with its sense of smell being one of its most important senses, maybe just that inability to smell us is maybe just a bit unnerving for her. But it's very strange. Like I said, we parked very far away from them, so I'm not convinced that it is us that has caused them to move. But it looks like they're going to keep on walking in the direction of that grove of fever trees in the distance there. And so as that female starts to defecate, I think we might loop around to the other side and try and get another look at them.
Great, so we came to Beverly Dam, and like I say, I'm going to check Fee Water Hole. There are only a few hippos here, but they're all over the shore. They're not actually in the same group or together. They're all spread around in this water hole. And what I've seen on the far end, it's actually female with her young one. It's probably new hippos in this water hole here. And they're still very tiny, I think. Probably a week or so old. But it's not actually visible anymore. Since they will spend a lot of their time here, it's been actually quite warm day for them. They won't just going to get out soon. If they have to do that, it's quick and then spend a lot of time outside of the water when it's this hot, and they always return back to the water. Like as usual, it's got to be always one male dominating this water hole. The other one just came out to take a breath. Actually lost the visual of the one that has a baby. I'm not sure if it's that one or because they kept switching position more especially. Oh, it could be the one. See a little bit of the head of a young one. There it is. Only see the limp of it every now and then. What the young one will do, able to use their mother's back, because they is not very shallow for young ones, so it's slightly deeper. And they use the mother's back to able to take a breath. March, good afternoon. Hippo, they breed all year round. So they're actually not a seasonal breeder. And we understand that they're actually water-dependent animal, always be in the water for their own safety of the skin. But wherever it's a lot of water and a lot of vegetation for them to be able to feed, which is grasses mostly, and they're all just going to make it throughout the year. Winter, which is the most serious season for most grazer animals. The winter, all grasses. Sometimes they run out of the grasses. But if it's more a lot of grasses, then the water is available to sustain their lives. Craig, you want to know how deep is this water hole? So where they are, it's not actually very deep, maybe 1.5 meters. But we're sitting right here on this very dam wall, and close to us, towards us, it's very deep, maybe 4 meters, somewhere like that. So Beverly Dam, it's actually very deep. Look at this yawn here. It's probably one of the young male that found himself this far. So it's quite deep water hole, yeah. And it's all have I think I've seen tilapia fish as well. I've seen catfish. Just to take a little bit of a moment of a silence, listening to all bird sound here. Amanda, yes, many of time hippo do that. They suckle under the water. Can also when they're outside of the water. They spend a lot of time inside the water during a daily basis. And then finally, the baby has to drink milk from there. You see, drinking once, the baby get a hold of their teats, and that's all. Suck milk out of that without any mix of the water at all. See that baby now, it's every now and then showing up. Hippo, they're also one of the animals, when they run out of the water, they can switch from another water to the next one by doing that at night. Very, very good and sense of smell can actually able to smell water hole station from way off for that. They will take that journey to reach that destiny. And eventually they'll get there sometime, but the only thing they won't tell how many other hippos are there, how many are dominating that water hole. Some river, it's quite a lot of it dominate, but territory comes and end of between the two dominate. So I'm gonna carry on search on the eastern boundary. Hopefully I get anything for you to show.
Poor Tandy, still suffering, but we're all covered in shade now. And I think I'm just going to sit here and let you enjoy all the sounds of the bush.
Unfortunately, we couldn't keep up with those two rhinos, everybody. They went off into a pretty dense patch where we didn't really have the best view. So Craig and I have continued through the plains and we've come across an enormous herd of buffalo. Have a look at them all spread out over this grassy hillside. Quite a big group of them, and in amongst them a couple of wildebeest. They've all come together here because of that beautiful lush green grass that's growing in amongst all of them there. This was an area that was burnt a couple of months ago during the winter time, and now after the rains it's flushed with lots of lush green grass, and it's just attracting lots of grazing animals. Have a look at this buffalo cow closest to us, just over here. See how she's been scratching her horn against the base of that little tree there. Now she looks like she's licking her lips or licking her mouth. And tough to see from here because she's a little bit far. There we go. She's starting to scratch again. Scratching the area around her horn, around her ears. Without hands, it must be pretty tough to get to some of those hard to reach itches. And so a little stick will do the job just fine. Just looking through my binoculars, it looks like her one eye is closed. Oh no, it's open now. I thought perhaps she'd injured herself and maybe it was a bit swollen, a bit inflamed, a bit painful, and that she was maybe gently rubbing it against that bush. to try and relieve the irritation a bit. And if we come to the right of her, can you see how there's a bunch of buffaloes that are lying down there, all in a big clump around that little bush? And looking at the buffalo on the far right of that group that's still standing up, see how it's all shiny and dark? There's a bit of a mud wallow there, a puddle from the recent rains. And it looks like several of these buffalo have all been rolling around in this mud wallow, trying to cool off. Rosanella, you're asking if there's any hybrid animals that live in Africa. Rosanella, that's an interesting question. And off the top of my head, I can't think of any mammals living in the wild that are hybrids. I'll think about it as I answer your question, but my first thought comes to birds, Rosanella, and yes, there are a couple of different bird species that do occasionally hybridize. Images that I've seen most recently were of two different robin chat species that appeared to have mated and then produced an offspring that looked a little bit, well, half like the one species and half like the other. And I don't remember exactly which two robin chat species they were. I think the one was a red-capped robin chat, but I forget the second of the two species. Two very closely related species that look rather similar, have similar habits, similar habitat. But Rosanelle, it's a very rare occurrence, and just the way that animals are, the way that they have evolved, different breeding strategies, different courtship rituals, it normally kind of prevents that kind of thing from happening. Because typically speaking, a hybrid animal is generally infertile and can't breed, can't pass on its genes. And that's not what, in terms of animals wanting to keep their species going, may ensure the survival of their species. It's not what you want, really, is to have genes diluted by other species' genes and to have infertile offspring being born. So it's not a very common thing, not a usual thing. But Rosanella, it definitely does happen with birds, very rarely. But off the top of my head, for now, I can't think of any mammal examples that I've heard of. But it looks like all those buffalo have now decided to stand up, and they're all moving slowly to the northeast, walking into the wind so that they can smell whatever's up in front of them, make sure that there's no potential danger ahead. And so as they move off, Craig and I are going to leave them, and we're going to carry on driving around to see what else we can find for you. Maybe some interesting little invertebrates.
Alrighty guys, so it took some tracking, but we have located on these two male cheetahs, our two territorial males that we have in this particular area closest to the mountains. And as you can see, they've had a busy couple of nights and days, for that matter, days mostly. After the rain has fallen, they have had to, patrol the entire outer boundary of their territory and start remarking because everything was washed away. So been doing quite some walking. For the first time I've actually now seen the extent of their territory. Sometimes you just miss them, miss their tracks, and you don't know exactly where or how far they do go. And it's incredible to see how large of a territory they've got. But, as you can see, out for the count for the moment, but very happy to have found them. And now we know that we will be with them as soon as they start getting active. I do think they won't wait too long. Now, during the warm parts of the day, yes, of course, they'll look like this. But I'd say from around 5 o'clock maybe, it's in about, 15 minutes, maybe an hour, they might start looking to start patrolling again. You can see the wind blowing is tickling that one on the tail. He's flicking it every now and again. But yes. We just had a question from Tammy. Is a house cat more related to a lion, leopard, or a cheetah? Tammy, the closest relative as far as the wild and wild cats are concerned would be the African wildcat. They would be closest related to a house cat. However, coming back to your question, I'd say the lion and leopard would be closer related to a house cat. Just looking at its, features. A little bit more stocky, not necessarily built for as much speed, can climb trees if needed. So let's go more towards the leopard side. A lion can climb trees as well, but not very efficiently. Fully retractable claws, which the cheetahs don't have. Still a long tail, but not as long. And then more rosette-like markings on the body, or stripes, like you'd find with a leopard, the rosettes, or more little black lines or so, whereas the cheetah has got solid dots. Now, the coloration should not at all be an indication of relatedness. Just the fact that a cheetah, if you look at a lion, a leopard, and a cheetah, and you look at a house cat, if you had to, relative to their body size, make a house cat the same size as these animals, they would look more like a leopard for me, personally. A cheetah has got a very round head, whereas the lion and the leopard has got more of a box-shaped head, just like a house cat. The cheetah is built for, aerodynamics and speed, and not necessarily able to effectively climb up and down trees that well, whereas the leopard excels at that. And a little bit more stocky built with the leopard. So I would go, if I had to choose, the leopard would be the closest relative. We just had a question from Gainita. What would be able to kill a cheetah? Okay, so there's a couple of different things. We'll start with the small things. Something as simple as a snake. They can go, if the cheetah is not careful enough and he steps on a branch or a bush or so where there is a Cape Cobra present, and that Cape Cobra strikes at it and injects its venom, they can kill it. But then if we go to the larger things, the natural enemies of a cheetah or competitors, I'd say hyenas, brown and spotted, both of them. However, more spotted hyenas. You'd find that leopard can kill cheetahs. Lions, definitely. They are probably their worst enemy as far as animals killing them goes. But then again, also, other cheetahs might be able to kill one another, as far as territorial disputes go, or things like killing the cubs of another male when they know that the female is mated with someone else and it's not their little ones, to cancel out that offspring. But yeah, guys, we're gonna sit here for a little bit, see if the cheetahs don't want to get mobile or just at least a little bit more active. But for the meantime, while they're looking like this, we are going to send you somewhere else.
Welcome back to Ambient Pinda. It didn't take too long for us to find a very pretty and rather unusual looking little invertebrate. Look at these two little insects that are clinging onto the branches of this young umbrella thorn. Have a look at that beautiful kind of bluish grey colour along their heads, and that very pinkish red stripe that goes along their wing cover. And these are called pink-banded weevils. And they're actually busy mating right now. And if you watch very carefully for long enough, you'll actually be able to see the egg come out of the female, and then the male will fertilize it. And it just happened a second ago. It's a little yellow thing that comes out, and then she kind of wiggles around, and the male also wiggles around as he fertilizes the egg, and then she withdraws it back into her body. So it just happened now. And I don't know if it'll happen again. To be honest, I haven't seen this very often before, so very exciting to watch and see what happens here. But looking around that There we go. They're wiggling. Let's see what happens here. There you go. There's the egg. See that yellow that's coming out? Can you see that, everybody? The slightly bigger weevil that's on the bottom. Look at that. Well, that answers that. We wondered if it would happen again, and it has. And I was saying there's quite a few different insects that are crawling around in this little baby umbrella thorn. Lots and lots and lots of pink-banded weevils. They're swarming all over this tree. And there's even some other little insects. Look to the right of them. There's that I don't know if you just saw that black and yellow insect crawling along there. It also looks like some kind of weevil that just crawled along there. And often in these thorn trees, these Vachellias, like this umbrella thorn tree, we see these little pink-banded weevils, especially in summertime, as they feed on the leaves. Obviously come here to mate as well. I can see a couple of different mating pairs all over this little umbrella thorn. There we go, they're wiggling again. Isn't that fantastic? And they're just so pretty as well, in this afternoon light as well, the blue and the contrasting pink. It looks like there's a couple of lone weevils wandering in their direction, busy feeding on looks like they're trying to feed on the new growth. There we go, busy eating the fresh shoots on this umbrella thorn. I wonder if they'll interrupt this mating pair. What will happen? There we go. There was that little egg again. It almost looks like they're joined there on the end of their abdomen. It's tough to see from here. I'm trying to use my binoculars to get a better look, and I don't want to go too close for fear of disturbing them. But it looks like the bottom one, the one that's on for us it'll be the top of the screen. It looks like it looks like they're joined at the abdomens there by a little black tube, a little black spike. That's obviously how the fertilization is taking place of that egg. Look, here comes another little weevil from the left and from the right. Let's see what happens here. What's he going to do when he discovers these two mating weevils? Here he comes, straight towards them. Oh, but ignoring them. Obviously on the lookout for food rather than... Oh no, he's going towards them. Climbing onto the same branch. Angie, you're saying what beautiful colors? They are super striking. They just, like I said, that stark contrast between the pink and the blue. Not a color that we really see too often, are these two shades of color so close together, that almost like gunmetal bluish gray contrasting with the pink. And like I said, I haven't been able to find too much information about these insects, but apparently they're edible. Now, I'm definitely not going to go and try and eat one, but apparently in some parts of the country they do get eaten. I suppose insects having a very high protein content, and just looking at this bush, how many weevils there are in here, if you desired, you'd be able to get a fair meal out of eating all of these little weevils. But how exciting was that? And so exciting, we said we were going to go and try and find an interesting invertebrate for you, and the first tree we checked, we found a whole bunch of them. But we're going to leave these pink-banded weevils, and we're going to carry on driving through the plains, see what else is around.
She got up, she came for water. Smart move, Tandy girl. It was a slightly bumpy drive for us to get here, but we're at Twin Dams, for those of you that know the reserve. And I went deep into how leopards drink the other day, so I won't bore you all again, but it's very much to do with physics, gravity and inertia. So every lap that she's doing with her tongue, she's not actually getting a large volume of water. It's very minuscule, and that's why leopards take a long time to drink. She's also very exposed out in the open, and therefore they're normally just a little bit nervous when it comes to sort of being exposed at a water hole. That must feel so good right now. We counted Tlalamba's laps the other day. Thank you to everyone who participated. And it's nothing short of 600, 700 laps of the tongue. Oh, Jim, I have no idea. Speculation, I'm afraid. I really don't know. They normally say that female leopards can weigh anywhere between 30 to 60 kilograms. But I think she's on the far petite side. She's very, very small. I really don't know. I couldn't gauge her weight. We used to play these games in camp and all argue with one another, but she's very, very light, Tandy. She's definitely lost muscle mass, which is normal as you get older. Whereas Miss Tlalamba, she's got a lot of muscle mass, that one. But it's really important to say, a lot of people say, oh, leopards lose condition, they lose condition. But honestly, if a leopard was really losing condition, they wouldn't be able to survive. Really, they wouldn't. Once they start to decline, it's rapid. And when they really do get too old, there's no retirement plan for a leopard. Once they get too old, it's normally quite a quick death, as sad as that sounds. Most leopards die from either injury, other predators, or, well, starvation, and it's quick. As soon as they lose condition, they just risk being killed. They risk death. So when we say a leopard's losing condition, that's probably not the correct terminology. They wouldn't be able to survive when losing condition. Okay, we're going to need to follow our cats here, and we've got ourselves in a bit of a tricky position. It's not going to be easy to get out of, so I hope you're holding on tightly back there. There's another vehicle, so I'm more than sure we'll be able to keep up with the Queen.
Alrighty guys, so I actually went and had a look quickly at who's related to who. So if you guys are still watching and you are still wondering, lion, leopard and jaguar is the three closest relatives as far as the big cats, and then tiger as well. So cheetah not at all related to the closely related to the domestic cat that we have around. So yeah, lion, leopard, jaguar and tiger, and that's all to do with the retracted claws. Cheetahs don't have any don't have fully retractable claws, and that is probably why it is a big reason that they are very distant relatives of the domestic cats. But yeah, as you can see, still nice and lazy. We're hoping that when they do get active, that there's going to be one of two things happening, and both of them will be epic. Either they're going to continue marking their territory, or they are going to look to hunt, because I can see their bellies are nice and flat. So I do think that they are hungry currently. The cherry on top would be if they are marking their territory and then come across something that they are hunting. It's always special to see both types of behaviors, and to have them combined would be even the best. But yeah guys, as you can also, for those of you who followed the last couple of drives with us, you can see they chose again the shepherd's tree to lie underneath in the shade. There's a couple of blackthorns and camel thorns around as well, but they chose this one particularly because it's got that nice cool shade. So much better on a warm day like today. It's not blazingly hot. We're up to 32 degrees Celsius today, so it's actually just a nice day. But I mean, if you have to lie on the warm sand the whole time, it is nice to have a nice cool set of bedding. But they are out for the count at the moment. Just an interesting thing with both the cheetahs and the leopards, guys. If you shave off all of their hair, I know they've got the white fur on the bellies and all of those things, but if you shave off all of the hair on their body, their skin will be a very dark, almost a black coloration. Most of the time they are black in color, the skin. Just because, with these animals being out in the sun the whole time, they have to have a lot of melanin in their skin to be able to withstand the sun. Act as protection against the sun so that the skin doesn't burn as easily. So most of your animals, if you do see them, that's why also things like with genetic deficiencies, where you can see they've got blue eyes and pink noses and those types of things, albino types of animals, they don't typically last very long out in Africa. Just because they are not able to cope with the sun. And also, they stick out like a sore thumb. So we just had a question from Fred. How much sleep do cheetahs need every day? They typically sleep a little less than the lions. So lions take the cake. They are inactive. Now, guys, when I say sleep, you have to remember that it's not necessarily sleeping the entire time. So they say that lions, often you use the phrase sleep for 20 hours a day. It's actually just resting. So they'll effectively sleep probably around 11, 12 hours a day, the lions now. Cheetahs a little less than that, I would say about 10, because they're mostly active during daytime. You find them being active quite late into the morning and getting active quite early in the afternoon. And then when it's a full moon, you'll find them active during the night as well. So I'd say sleeping effectively, like physically sleeping, eyes closed like they are right now, around 10 hours a day, maybe a little bit more, pushing it up to 11. And with the cats, they will always tend to sleep more than you would find, or any predator for that matter, will always tend to sleep more than the herbivores, just because they never know when their next meal will be. So conservation of energy is of absolute importance. So with that being the case, they look like this quite often, just because they have to save as much energy as possible. And when they do spend it, it has to count. So it has to either be patrolling territories or looking to obtain new energy sources like hunting and things like that. But to be inactive, to come back to your question, sleeping around 10 to maybe 11 hours a day, I'd say. Inactive for around 16. So inactive for far longer, but then that other 5 to 6 hours that they are inactive, they spend cleaning themselves and just looking out for maybe prey or bonding with each other. These two boys have to have a very close bond. Even though if they do come across a female that is ready for mating, they will fight with one another also to establish who is going to have the mating rights. When that is finished, they have to reassure that social bond that they've got between one another. So lots of cuddling, cleaning one another, so allo grooming, those types of things, just to make sure that they both know they still love each other. So yeah, those inactive hours are spent quite productively when they're not necessarily sleeping, to keep the bond between one another, or with a female that has cubs, to keep that bond strong, make sure that the cubs are nice and clean, all of those types of things. But yeah, they are definitely a little bit more active than what you would find with something like a lion. Just because lions are bigger, they need to save more energy, because when they move, they spend more energy. And they're not as successful at hunting. Cheetahs are much more successful at hunting as lions. They're just not as successful at keeping their kills once they've done so. Lions, I want to say, have probably a 75 to 80% success rate as far as keeping their kills is concerned, whereas cheetahs, they only yeah, they lose 4 out of 5 kills before they finish it. So, unfortunately, with them being a little bit smaller, muscular-wise, and also having the thinner bones, not as thick bones as far as density is concerned, they cannot risk the injury. But yeah, while they're looking not too active, we're going to send you to another beautiful location, okay?
We have left Tandy just for a while. Another vehicle is there, so we can let them enjoy her. And I've came to Sedgwick's house. But sadly, the chick's not in view. Mama's obviously returned. But seeing the chick alone now will be a commonplace every single day. And I do have my artistic work of the day ready. Once again, do not judge me. I have copied it directly from a book, The Owls of Southern Africa by Alan Kemp and Simon Colburn. I am not taking any credit, but unfortunately I can't show you the book. So I'm going to try and hold it like this. And here we go. This is the stage we're at now. Beautiful. Oh no, okay, I'm going to hold it here. I can't use my porky pointer. And they say that this stage that we're at is anywhere between 4 and 7 days. And you can see the writing directly copied from the book. Immensely rapid development in the first few days, as we've seen. Large bare area, bare is spelled wrong, excuse that, of skin appears because of the growth. Take a look at this image. This one here, yeah. Large bare area of skin appears because the growth of the body outstrips the rate of growth of the intermediate feathers. So that's why you see lots of skin at this stage, just skin. The growth of the body is sort of taking place at a faster rate than the feathers. The structure of the feathers are emerging. And you will start to see dark fleeks among the residual down. And you'll start to see other feathers come in. There's 2 types of down feathers. There's the first one, and then there's a second round. So this is what we're going to start to see now. And you'll see the first wing exercises. There will be no flight, but you will start to see them moving their wings like this individual is here. And again, as the last stage, the head and the feet look disproportionately large. Now, it does say that the eyes are said to not be fully open. So they may appear open, but not fully. It's normally after the 7-day mark that they're wide as they can be. So, that's my artistic work of the day. We're going to do it stage by stage. I did get an A for art in school, but that was many moons ago. Anyway, I'm only joking. It does come from a book. And I think it's just really nice to follow the development. I don't own the book, sadly. I wish I did. But I think we at least know where we're at, and I think I'm at the right timing. I do believe that the individual, as James witnessed this morning, is really at that stage between 4 and 7 days. So even if I'm a day or 2 out, I still think that that's where we're at with this owl. It's very accurate, and we did see a glimpse of the chick earlier. It is under Mom's wing. It must be so hot under there. Oof. I think if we're just patient enough, we might get a glimpse. And within the next few days, we will have a name for you, I promise. It deserves a name. Mama actually hasn't even got a name. We just call her Mrs. Wig. Oh, ye Harry Potter fans, the name came from Hedwig. If you're not a Harry Potter fan, then no need to worry. But I think we're going to continue the Wig lineage. Mom's expression is exactly how I feel most nights after a day out in the sun. I can barely keep my eyes open. They start to go cross-eyed. I feel you, Mrs. Wig. But going back to the point, as the days go on, she's going to spend more and more time away from her chick, and that's normal. So although the chick is still underdeveloped, still weak, still not moving, only just starting to move its wings to exercise those muscles, not capable of running, not capable of flying, no technique or way to evade predators, So it's still a risk, but Mom will spend more and more time away from the chick each day we come. Didn't catch that name, but they're not kicked out. I think kicked out is probably the wrong terminology, but it's very, very normal for youngsters in mammals, birds, even fish actually, although it's slightly different, to disperse to their own grounds, especially for a male. A male will need to go and meet his own female, set up his own territory, then mates with that female, and of course produce his own offspring. Just as a female will need to disperse to set up her territory. It's not that they're kicked out. Oh, Mum's hot, look, Gular fluttering. You see that? She's doing the bird version of what Tandy was doing. She's very hot. We can't actually see it, but she's fluttering the tissue in her throat in order to create moisture, to pump air in and out, and cool through evaporative cooling. But yes, kicked out is probably not the right terminology, but yes, it's a biological instinct when animals get to a certain age to disperse, just like hyenas, just like Hosanna dispersed. Hosanna was not kicked out by Tingana. But it's exactly the same thing. He needed to leave. He was in his father's territory. He needed to disperse to set up his own. And he also needed to find his own gene pool of ladies. Mating with Tlalamba or Tandy is probably not a good idea in terms of genetics. And it's exactly the same for this owl. There's really no different. So they will reach a stage when they will disperse and start their own life. And that's actually what happened to Sebwig. Although we were very sad to lose him, for those of you that all followed Sebwig, he had to disperse. We still don't know if it was a he or a she, but still, they had to leave. And this normally happens at about 10 months. 4 months we start to see them disperse. So I'm going to sit here and sweat along with our hot owl.
Alrighty guys, so still not a lot of activity around here. The boy on the left hand side every now and again pops up his head just to make sure that we're still here. But yeah, these two males are very relaxed. I have to say, with certain individuals of cheetahs in Tswalu, we are very blessed that they are super chilled. It's them and then that female with the little ones that we've been following for up until about the last 2 weeks. And then there's a couple of other individuals. When you go far west and south in the reserve, then they become a little bit more skittish. But these two boys are always a real treat. I mean, we are standing not 25 meters away from them. And for them to be sleeping as soundly as they are at the moment, that just shows you how much they, are fine or trust the vehicle by now. So often when our trackers are busy following up on tracks and so on, they find them on foot, and they are completely relaxed with them on foot as well. So you'd find standing 25 meters away from them, they'd just lie under the tree until someone comes and picks up the tracker with the vehicle. So super, super relaxed, very happy to have cats that are like this, especially comparing them to the ones that I told you in the southwest, that's running at around 150 meters. As soon as they see a vehicle, they just move away because they don't know. So yeah. Happy to have found these two boys, especially for you guys.
Keeping to the theme with green pastures and grazing animals, Craig and I found a couple of herds of zebra here, sprawled out on this little bank. And again, look at how vibrant that green is. Really, really sharply contrasting against the white and black of the zebra. And look, just behind them up on that hillside, can you see all that ash and soot there from where the fire was? So that's what this whole landscape looked like if we go back maybe 3-4 months. It's amazing what a bit of rain and a bit more sunshine has done to this landscape. So there's this group of zebra here in front of us, and then using my binoculars to look off into, there's some kind of burnt thickets. There's at least 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 other little groups of zebra spread out across the landscape in front of us. Some of them are a bit tough to see just because of how thick the burnt twigs are. It looks like some of these bushes may have died in the fire, but of course grasses, being adapted to being able to cope with fire and often needing fire to grow at their healthiest, they came back just fine under the right conditions. And now providing a banquet for these beautiful zebra as they stand there swishing their tails. Of course, the spring hasn't only just brought lush green growth, it's also brought a few more invertebrates out, like those weevils we saw earlier. It's also been a lot more flies around. Those tails swishing incessantly, trying to keep the flies at bay. And if we just look off to the left from this group of zebra, there's a bit of a ravine. I don't know if you can see that with the rocks along the side there. There's a lot of dense thickets down there, lots of foliage down there. A perfect spot for animals to hide during the heat of the day. And apparently this morning in this area there were a couple of black rhinos that were feeding out in the open on some of these low-growing shrubs, low-growing bushes. And that's what Craig and I are hoping to find now. I imagine with the heat of the day, these black rhinos would have gone either into this ravine to shelter from the sun, or there's a couple of thickets of big tambuetes to our north. They might have gone in there as well. So we're just going to have to drive along and carefully scan into these denser areas. Because I'm pretty sure now, with the temperature cooling off a little bit, and with black rhinos often being a bit more active at night, pretty sure that these black rhinos we're looking for are going to start to move around a little bit. Maybe come out into the open again to come and feed on these shrubs and these bushes. Lovely to see these zebra with so much food available to them, and good for them and good for us to know that they're going to be healthy and fat come the end of the summer season. Craig and I are going to leave these zebra. We're going to keep on searching for any sign of that black rhino.
Yeah. Alrighty guys, so yeah, just as you can see, still relatively static. What I was saying earlier about them being so relaxed, it's just a breath of fresh air to know that the animals trust you. But now that we zoomed in on those paws, I mean, we spoke about how they can't retract their claws earlier. I mean, these animals are now completely relaxed, and have a look at how you can see how those claws are visibly sticking out, and you can see they're not nearly as sharp as what you'd find with a lion or a leopard or so, or even your house cat at home. I mean, those are like little razor blades. But the reason for that is just because they are sticking out all the time, so that they have extra traction for when they run at those great speeds. They do weigh down a tiny bit more. Not that they are less lethal. I mean, if they scratch you, you are still going to bleed. However, luckily, as far as a cheetah is concerned, to a human, they're not a great threat. Just because they are a little bit smaller, even though they look taller on the leg than a leopard. Believe me, guys, a leopard is much more of a threat than what you'd find with a cheetah. The cheetah just looks bigger because they've got longer legs. But a leopard is much more bulky and much more prone to be aggressive towards you than a cheetah. A cheetah would much rather not risk the injury and move away than to physically, go into a confrontation with us. But yeah, just very cool to be able to see those claws at the moment. We just had a question from Sinak. How long does a cheetah cub needs to stay with his mother? Sinak, it depends on the mom. We've had individuals here in the past keep their cubs for up to almost 3 years, which is very long. It's, as a rule, it's not supposed to be like that. A good average is anything between 18 months and 2 years. The closer one being around 18 months before she'll fall pregnant and have new cubs, and at which point she will push the other, the previous litter away. So typically speaking, as far as the cheetahs is concerned, around 18 months up to, if it's a very good mother, going up to 2 years, or if she feels like she needs to add a little bit of parental care, up until 2 years. But however, like I said, we've seen here in Tswalu females keeping their cubs with them for up to almost 3 years of age. By that time, those cats are adult. The amazing thing was she pushed them away after turning almost 3, and 3 weeks later she had new cubs. So very impressive on her side to be able to have babies growing in her womb and still be able to raise, I think it was actually 5 cubs that she was raising at that time, up until about 3 years of age. So she was just like a super mom. So yeah, typically speaking, 18 months to 2 years, but you do get the exceptions where they push them out a little later as well. It won't happen often where you find them pushing them out earlier than 18 months. Anything earlier than that, the mom is going to risk the little ones not being able to fend for themselves completely, and those cubs might end up not making it. So, it is possible that it'll happen. However, highly unlikely. And the chances of those cubs then making it to full adulthood, if they do get pushed out before a year and a half, it just drops dramatically, because they haven't learned everything they needed to learn from their mother. So, yeah, typically they don't push them out that soon.
Now, believe it or not, there is a leopard there. She's just remarkably flat in the grass, and all we can see is the panting. So she went to Twin Dams, had a huge big drink, and now she's came back to the exact same spot down in the Mulwati to get some shade. And it's definitely not great visuals, I'm afraid. I think Tandy will be lalapanzi, as they say here in Shangaan, for quite some time. I think we've got about another hour before Tandy starts to move. There's a very upset squirrel somewhere. Hugely upset. Possibly because Tandy's in the area. I'm not sure if you can hear that noise. It's not a bird, it's a squirrel. Yes, I think I can see Tandy. But Tandy is clearly not fazed. Joy, not necessarily, no, because leopards' claws are protected in a sheath. So the normal sort of resting position for a leopard when they're sleeping or they're not doing anything, they're hanging out in a tree, the claws are actually inside the protective sheath. Now they call them protractile claws, but actually they're probably the correct term is retractable claws. So using muscular contractions, they come out, they're forced out for movement. So when they need to hunt, or they need to defend themselves, or they need to climb a tree, they then bring the claws out. And they do sharpen their claws. They use trees and hard ground to sharpen them. But just by walking, when you follow a leopard walking through the sand or walking along the road, their claws are not out, not like a hyena's or a wild dog or even a domestic dog. They're inside a protective sheath. And it's for that exact reason, Joy, in order to keep them sharp, because they wouldn't really be able to survive without them. Wow, these views are remarkable. I hope you're all enjoying this incredible sighting of Tandy. Oh, right on cue. Thank you, girl. Oh, Paul, I have no idea. What do you think? 500 meters? Yeah, maybe 400, 500 meters away from Sedgwick's house. They're both in the Mulwasi though, Paul, you're correct in saying that. But Tandy's at the very south. And Sedgwick's house is a little bit further in. So I'm going to go with 400 to 500 meters, but don't quote me on that. But Tandy absolutely would if she came across the new wig. Junior wig. We'll call him Junior for now. If Tandy did come across Junior wig, she would absolutely take that opportunity. Tandy's known for going for birds. Leopards eat everything in every single category of animals. Birds, fish, insects, reptiles, amphibians, and of course mammals. Very, very opportunistic animals, and unfortunately that little chick would be a perfect snack. But don't worry, Tandy is not going to go that way. And luckily enough, Mama's there. Now Mama has very sharp talons, very sharp beak, and she would probably swoop down and attack Tandy. In all fairness, that's why Mom is there. Missy's wig is there to defend her chick, and she probably would swoop down and bop Tandy on the head. Daisy, you're looking at her. Tandy and Tingana are both the oldest leopard and leopardess in this area. Now, leopards have been known to live a lot longer, but in this area, as we speak in the northern sector of the Sabi Sands, Tandy and Tingana are the oldest at 14 years old. Leopards have been known to live to 18. But as it stands right now, it's Tandy and Tingana. And she's still in great condition. She may be a bit stiff in the morning, but aren't we all? Okay, so we're going to sit with Miss Tandy a little bit longer, and hopefully at some point she gets up.
Welcome back to And Beyond Pinder, everybody. Now, this might be quite a tough view, but we have managed to find a black rhino. I don't know if you can see just its back sticking out of the bushes there. We stopped on this little hillside to scan down into the valley below, and we could see lots of white rhinos. And I just heard the sound of some rhinos interacting with each other, some huffing sounds, and I looked over in the direction and then just got a glimpse of that black rhino moving through the bush. You might just be able to make out its back above the tops of the bushes there. It's not a very easy view. This rhino is obviously still not yet ready to move around out in the open too much just yet. It looks like it's there it is. Look at that. See that very deep saddle from its shoulder down to its back? And those very round ears as opposed to the more tubular ears that a white rhino has. Craig's just saying apparently you can't see it. There's 2 black rhinos there. Still can't see it. Okay. We'll have to reposition everybody to show that to you. But I think in the meantime, have a look at these white rhinos that are just down here as well. Looks like a mother and her youngster, almost grown youngster, feeding along on the grass there. Amazing to see the 2 species so close together. Craig, you're asking how much grass white rhinos would need to eat a day to survive. And Craig, that'll depend on the size of the rhino, but it's normally, if I'm not mistaken, between about 40 and 60 kilograms of grass per day. And that'll obviously depend on the size of the rhino and also on the time of year. At the wetter times of year, like now when the grass is lush and green, the grass is more nutritious. And so they won't have to eat as much theoretically. Quite a few white rhinos moving around in the open. I'm just trying to keep an eye on those 2 black rhino. Oh, it's just such a tough view. Such a pity. Tammy, you're asking if there are a lot of black rhinos. Tammy, here at Pinda, we're very fortunate that we have a good number of them, but they are animals that live at relatively low densities. They tend to live more solitarily. Sometimes they'll come together around water sources to drink and sometimes seemingly to socialize as well, but they tend to live at lower densities than white rhinos. They are a critically endangered species of rhino. If I'm not mistaken, I think there's only about somewhere around 5,500 of them left in the wild in the world. So that's a very, very, very low number, obviously. And luckily the number is slowly increasing thanks to conservation efforts. They're a rhino that is a lot more widespread than these southern white rhinos. They found across a much greater expanse of Africa than these southern white rhinos. Found all the way from kind of down here in southern Africa, Namibia, the north of Botswana, historically kind of Central Africa, and even now up into East Africa. I'm sure you guys have got to see them up in the Masai Mara. But yeah, like I said, they're living at much lower densities than these white rhinos, so a pretty rare animal to see. And it's all thanks to conservation efforts that these numbers are increasing. And one of the things that we do here at Pinda is we're part of a project called the Black Rhino Range Expansion Project. Oh, the black rhino's out. They're out in the open. There we go. Well spotted, Craig. There's the black rhino. Look at that. Look at how it's sniffing. It's got its head up in the air. And now it's trotting quite quickly through the bush. It's almost as if she got a fright from something. It looks like a mother and her calf. There's a much smaller rhino in there with her. Let's try maybe go a bit forward. We might be able to get a slightly better view. This is really exciting, everybody. There it is. So she's currently sitting with or standing with her head up, and she's looking kind of over her calf's back. There's the little calf. I don't know if you can make it out, just in front of her, looking towards her. And look at how thick the bush is there all around them. Like I was saying earlier, an animal that likes to live, or often likes to live in very dense areas, and as a result can be quite nervous and quite inquisitive. Very quick to investigate something strange. Very quick to or often quite quick to aggressively investigate something that is out of place. Look how the calf is imitating its mother. See how it's also lifted its head up into the air and it's also smelling the breeze. And that's a typical kind of posture of a black rhino that's detected something, but it's not too sure what's going on. So it's lifting its head, trying to get the air flowing through its big nostrils to analyze the scent. Trying to use its ears to hear and see if it can hear what the intruder is. Mrs. Farrett, you're asking if female black rhinos are endangered. Mrs. Farrett, all black rhinos are endangered. Like I said, as a whole, as a species, there's only a little more than 5,500 left in the whole of Africa, or in the whole world then, basically, in the wild. So yeah, both males and females are endangered. I can't believe this, everybody. We said we were going to go try and find a black rhino. And amazing to have found two in amongst all of these white rhinos. Just shows how the two species, because they feed on different things, can coexist and live side by side pretty peacefully. And she's still on the alert. I know it's a tough view. It's just kind of the ridge of her back for now. R2, you're asking what would happen if a white rhino met a black rhino. R2, I've actually watched it happen once, and it was quite funny to watch. Like I was saying, the black rhinos are a lot more kind of jittery, a lot more nervous, a lot more inquisitive, and also quite a bit smaller. And I watched a black rhino once walk up to a massive white rhino bull and smell it, and they almost touched noses. The black rhino came right up to the white rhino and smelled its face, and the white rhino just kind of flinched, and the black rhino got a fright and started to run around in circles. And I don't know if you've ever seen a lamb when it's excited, and how it kind of jumps, it bounces up and down with its front legs and spins in circles. And that's what it started to do. I don't think they do that 100% of the time, but the one time that I've seen them interact, that was what happened. But most of the time, I think they'll just basically ignore each other. They might investigate, but neither one really poses a threat to the other, so they'll normally just ignore each other. That black rhino cow is still looking very carefully off to the left there. Oh, I can hear a second vehicle. There's another vehicle on the other side of the hill in front of us. It must be that she saw or heard that vehicle, and that's what's making her a little bit unsure. I think we're going to spend a bit more time here, Craig and I. Maybe try for a slightly better view of this black rhino. Wouldn't that be exciting if she came out into the open?
Now we are still with Tandy. I think we're going to go for a little bumble. I'm in the middle of directing people into the sighting, so bear with me if the game drive goes off. Go to a bumble, just check the water holes nearby, and then we will come back to Miss Tandy, and hopefully by then she'll have woken up a little bit. Well, she's awake, but you know what I mean, she's up and moving a little bit more. And I remember 2 years ago when I first joined here, everyone was worried, oh, Tandy, I don't think she'll have another litter, she's getting old, and look at her, she is absolutely thriving. I think you've gone the wrong direction. You're heading north, turn back south, and you'll see us go towards Gowrie Main and the Mulwati. Sorry, I'm the only person on lock, so I have to direct them in, I'm afraid, and then we can hand over the lock.
Right, I'll wait for them to get into position and I'll join you.
Ooh, she's getting up. Nope. We're going back down again. Okay, let's reposition. We're definitely not going to get a view from here. She's doing well to get the shade, though. Can you get it from there?
Alrighty guys, so a little bit of activity. We actually have Kyle, you all know Kyle, that alternates with me on the drives, that has got his vehicle with his guests coming towards us now. So that caused this guy, and I think the sun also, caused this guy to get up a little bit. As you can see, he's just changing positions. But what we are going to do though is, with them being relatively static, we are going to just finish this conversation with you now, and then as soon as we see that they are not looking to do something anymore, then we're going to move on and see what else we can find. Maybe there's something else that's already active. But like I said, for the time being, that tail flicking, I think, is the only action that we are going to get. Luckily, we have other vehicles that is pulling into the sighting now that is also going to keep an eye on the cheetahs for us. So as soon as they do get active, they'll let me know, and then we'll come back this way and see if they don't want to, like I said, mark their territory, or maybe possibly start hunting or something like that. You know, a little bit more horizontal movements. But yeah, I think what we're going to do is move on now. The first vehicle has just pulled in, so we are going to move on and see what else we can find, okay?
Great, good luck. Hopefully you get to see these cheetahs or move or hunt. We now come across 3 or 4 impalas in this area. You know, we've been trying in the southern boundary, and then nothing really. Everybody's still in a shed in this kind of a still hot day. So we can stop here. And that male impala there has got a lot of oxpecker on him. There's this oxpecker that do a very important role on any of animal out here, except the elephants and the cats, and the small animals like these type of scrub hares and things, but mainly antelopes. They always associate with the antelope, like what you see there. So like 3 of them. And all they do, they get animal cleaned off, pick the parasite ticks, mainly. Of course, without these birds, you know, animal, they have a problem with ticks otherwise, especially with this kind of new shoots of grasses taking places. All ticks will be available quite a lot. And he looks like he got used to those birds as well. He's kind of like feel a bit of scratch, massage kind of. But he's going to also rely on them. Once they fly off, he's going to be also aware about maybe there's something coming for him. And these birds, probably since it's very hot, they always open their beak when they're not picking on any of the animal skin there. So I'm going to check one more time one of the water hole, and then I'm going to be taking you over another live guide.
Craig and I have managed to get a slightly better view of these black rhino, and from this vantage point I'm not 100% sure just yet, but I think there might even be 3 black rhinos here. There's that one on the right that's out in the open. That was the one we could see earlier. I haven't had a glimpse of that calf yet, and that's why I think that there are 3, because look to the left of this one that's in the open. There's just the back and the rear end of a second adult that's now concealed behind a guarri bush. And looking at that adult, we had a glimpse of its face just now, and it seemed to have a very thin base of its horn, which is often characteristic of a female rhino, because female rhinos don't use their horns for fighting. They just use them for defense of themselves and of their youngsters. The horns are often very thin, very sharp. Males, on the other hand, because they use them for fighting, often have a much thicker base to the horn. And that looks a bit more like a fitting description of this rhino that's in the open here. So here we go. There's the front and second horn. And did you see how thick the bases were? Christine, you're asking if black and white rhinos ever interbreed. Christine, as far as I've read, I haven't come across any cases in the wild of it naturally happening. But I have heard of a case. Oh, look, he's twisting around. Look at that. He's just heard something or just smelled something and he just twisted around. Sorry, Christine. I got all excited there. I've read of a case where in captivity, I don't remember if it was artificially done, in a test tube, so to speak, or if it was kind of incited or invited by the zookeepers of the zoos many years ago, and they got a hybrid between a black and a white rhino, and it was, of course, infertile, and I don't think it didn't survive very long. It died not long after it was born. Didn't make it to adulthood. I think I've made this joke before. So I'm so tempted to say, it made a grey rhino, but that'd be a bit corny, especially since it's the second time that I've made that joke. But anyway, let's move on from that. This black rhino still with his ears pricked forward, and our suspicions have been confirmed. There is a second vehicle here that we couldn't see earlier, and that's exactly what these rhinos are looking at. What this rhino is looking at. The wind is blowing directly from that vehicle straight to this rhino down here, and he might not be able to see the vehicle very well because of his vantage point down there in the bushes, but he can no doubt smell them and hear them, and so I think he's just investigating, trying to see what they're doing, where they are. See how that nose is tilted up into the air? Trying to gather as much information as he can with his ears and his nostrils. The other rhino appears to have relaxed a little bit though. She's standing with her back end to the sound of the other vehicle. I'm still using my binoculars, trying to see through that guarri bush, to see if I can't see if there is a calf there. And perhaps it was these rhinos that I heard. Remember I said that I could hear some rhinos interacting, some huffing sounds. And I wonder if it's not maybe this bull that was trying to, maybe he's making some advances on this female, trying to see if she's an estrus. And maybe she wasn't so welcoming to his advances. See how they're standing a little distance away, and he seems very hesitant to walk towards her. But it seems like he's relaxed a little bit now that the other vehicle has left. And so now we'll hopefully see a bit more behavior that's a bit more natural, not being impacted by the sound of other human voices. See, we're sitting here, and he's not really paying any attention to us. We're talking nice and quietly.
His ears are kind of flicking all over the place, not really focusing on us. So let's see what happens now. It's almost like a stalemate where he's just standing here and she's standing on the other side of the bush.
Barbara, with rhinos, so you're asking at what age do the horns normally grow? Barbara, normally by about a year, that horn is already starting to become quite prominent. You can already see quite a pronounced little tip coming from the top.
And then it's normally by about 7 years that it gets to its full length. And obviously with us taking the step to dehorn the rhinos here at Untitled to keep them
Safe from poachers in conjunction with many other things that we do to try and keep or to try and prevent poaching. Because the horn grows like a fingernail does, we have to dehorn them, if you will, every 18 months or so.
That horn grows back just like a fingernail, so it grows normally about 11 centimeters a year. And so we'll try and keep it as short as possible, obviously to make them as unattractive to poachers as possible. But remember that white rhino we saw earlier? And we saw how covered in mud it was? Look at this black rhino as well and how muddy he is.
There's a big mud wallow nearby, and it looks like all these white rhinos nearby and these black rhinos have visited this mud wallow during the day. I think Craig and I might try for one more reposition, for one more angle on these black rhinos, and we'll call you back if we're successful.
We'll come in for Michelle. Hi, Michelle.
Welcome back to Untitled. Sorry about that, everybody. Sometimes out here in the bush, there can be technical difficulties that we have, and it's all part of the challenge and all part of the fun of bringing you a live safari from the wilds of the African bush. Craig and I are still with these rhinos. We haven't moved just yet. We just wanted to see where they go and what they do. I'm also just hesitant to move now because if we move, it's going to take us to where that other vehicle was. And that might then spook these rhinos. So
I think we'll just spend a bit of time with these rhinos here and see what they get up to. Look at how that bull is shuffling around. He's now looking in the direction of some white rhinos that have been slowly approaching in their direction. They've gone behind some bushes for now, so we can't see them. But we've been talking about this interaction between white and black rhino and how interesting it can be and how it's very special to see it. And I can't think of a better chance for it to happen because right now, like I said, there's these 3, or at least 2, possibly 3 black rhino right here in front of us. And there's a lot of white rhino that also seem to be feeding in the direction of these black rhino. So let's see what happens. Oh, can you imagine? Can you imagine if we get to see that? A black rhino and white rhino interaction. It's going to be absolutely incredible. I've just noticed now, this black rhino bull that we've been looking at with his back to us, who's a bit more out in the open, have a look at his right ear. Every now and then when it goes forward, you just get a glimpse of how it's got a big tear in it.
It's got a big flap of skin that's hanging down. So he's obviously torn it, maybe while rushing through the bush.
in response to some danger. Oh, but he's just keeping us on the edge of our seats. We're just waiting for him to move. But he doesn't look like he's in any hurry to go anywhere anytime soon. I think, like I said, with these black rhinos being slightly more nocturnal, it'll be the night time, the cool of evening that they'll be waiting for before they really start to move around. And once it does get a bit darker, this bull, I said, if he's just turned around, look at that. I wonder what made him do that. The wind is suddenly blowing a little bit harder from the left-hand side. And he's turned around. Oh, look, he's facing towards us. That's very strange. The wind is still... It might be that the wind has shifted ever so slightly and is now coming more from the north than from the northeast. And maybe he's caught our scent now too. And see how he's turned? But his head's up. And we'll see if he maybe turns to face towards us. Because for now, even though his head's up, he's not facing directly towards us. He's not super tense. So I think he's just taking in the scent. Maybe just got a whiff of something. And he's looking around. Relaxing a little bit now. That's good. That's how we prefer to view this black rhino. Obviously, we don't want to have an impact on his behavior. But amazing how alert he is. And how, like I said earlier, almost like twitchy. Every smell, every gust of wind, every movement gets his attention and he turns to investigate it. And that's why trying to approach these black rhinos on foot can be quite a challenge. And can lead to some pretty high or pretty adrenaline-filled encounters. Very difficult creatures to sneak up on if you are not careful. Of course, we should always be careful when walking out in the bush. As long as you're downwind of them and quiet, you should be all right. But often tracking a black rhino entails going into very thick bush like where this black rhino is now. And then you could literally have a scenario develop where you don't realize the rhino is there until it's too late. And that reminds me of a story of one of my head rangers and one of my mentors when I was training. And he told me about a time when he was training a young tracker. And he had it was our head ranger and a very experienced older tracker training this younger tracker on how to follow black rhino tracks, how to find them on foot. And they were walking through the bush, a bit like this, kind of low-growing scrub. Not too many big trees and not too much like good cover to hide behind. And they were walking along, and they'd been walking for hours and hours and hours, and they'd lost the tracks. And they were trying to find the tracks again, and they just couldn't find the tracks. And often with black rhino bulls, especially after rain, when their scent has been washed away, and they go around their territory and mark their territory furiously, trying to relay all of their scent, and they walk in zigzags up and down. It can be very tough to follow their tracks. And so that was what was happening on this particular morning. And it was getting hot, and eventually everyone was a little bit tired, and our head ranger said, no, you know what he's going to do? He's just going to go a little bit further forward, and he's going to check to see if he can... Barbara, I'll get to your question just now. And he said he's just going to climb onto this little termite mound in front of him to see that if he can maybe stand up on the termite mound and scan with his binoculars to see if he can spot the rhino. And as he got to the termite mound stood up. The termite mound was not a termite mound, but it was the black rhino bull that they had been trying to track down the whole morning. And the black rhino saw him, and he saw the black rhino, and he turned around to tell the two trackers to stand still.
And as he turned around, all he saw was a cloud of dust as the two trackers disappeared rapidly in the opposite direction. And he looked back at the rhino, and he made the decision. Luckily, the rhino was looking the wrong way, and so he also snuck out of there as quickly as he could. And luckily, the rhino didn't see any of them or didn't detect any of them. Of course, that is the golden rule, generally speaking, in the bush, is that you should never run away, because that's when things can go wrong. So yeah, I did well to escape that situation. Sorry, Barbara, you asked how old a rhino is when it's born. Barbara, depending on the species, it's normally around 40 to 60 kilograms. Obviously, with a white rhino, it'll be slightly heavier, and a black rhino, a little bit less. Black rhino's being quite a bit smaller size-wise than a white rhino. A big white rhino bull weighing upwards of 2,000 kilograms, and a black rhino, a big bull, maybe between somewhere around 1,000 kilograms.
But it seems like he's relaxed again a little bit. Look at that, everybody.
Charles, you're saying you think he can hear us? Charles, even though I might sound quite loud on your device that you're watching this show from, I'm actually whispering. I'm lucky I've got the microphone very close to my cap, and I'm talking as quietly as I can, where you'd still be able to hear me. I think what's more than likely is that the wind, like I said, is blowing mainly from the northeast, but of course every now and then it just tilts a bit in its direction. And I think what happened earlier is that, there we go, the wind has just shifted again. Let's see what happens here. The wind's over our backs, blowing straight towards him. Look, he's just turned his head, and now both ears are facing forwards. See that? He's just got our scent again, and his head is lifted ever so slightly once more. And so, Charles, his ears are, you've very correctly observed that his ears are facing towards us, and so you're saying that he's listening to us, but I think he's just caught a whiff of our scent, and he's just listening in the direction of where we are to see. He smelled something here, and so he's trying to see if he can hear something here too. Well, I'm glad that we persevered a little bit, everybody, and we got rewarded for our patience. At the start, it was a pretty tough view of these black rhinos, but I'm glad that we persevered and that we got to see the odd glimpse of the rhino's face, of the rhino's head. A little bit far away, so tough to see that very characteristic pointed prehensile lip of the black rhino, but nice we got to see some of the other features, like I mentioned, that very deep saddle. It was how we identified it initially as a black rhino in amongst all of these white rhinos. Bill, I think you're asking which of the rhino species has the worst disposition. Bill, I can't speak for the rhinos in Asia. The Sumatran, the Javan, the Indian one-horned rhinoceros. I haven't had any personal experiences with them. I've heard stories about Indian one-horned rhinoceros being quite irritable, or quite easily, or I don't know if they may be quite similar to black rhino and how they can be quite inquisitive. And quite twitchy, I think is a good word to describe their temperament. But Bill, in my experience, I found that black rhino tend to be, out of the white and black rhino, they tend to be a bit more nervous and a bit more ready to investigate something, and then a bit more ready to then either run towards the threat or run away from it. I've experienced white rhinos behaving aggressively before as well, but not nearly as often as I have experienced a black rhino doing the same. I've spoken to people, though, who have said that they've never had a bad experience with black rhino, only with white rhino. So I suppose
all species, if put into certain circumstances or certain situations where they feel threatened or they need to defend themselves or they're unsure of what's going on, they could be perceived to have a mean disposition. But the black rhino certainly has a reputation for being like that. Sorry about that, everybody. We just lost comms there with Final Control. Just had to get back onto the cell phone call with them. Jason, you're asking what we call a female rhino. Jason, we'd call her, and I promise I'm not saying this to be nasty, we'd call her a cow. So with most herbivores that are kind of bigger than an Inyala female, we'll call them cows. At an Inyala's size and smaller, we'll call them ewes. And it's the same with the males, so then the males will then be bulls. Everything from an Inyala bull and bigger will be bulls, all herbivores. So a giraffe bull, an elephant bull, a hippo bull, and hippo cow, and a rhino bull and a rhino cow. And look at how this black rhino is now starting to let his head hang down a little bit. His nose is dropping. We've spoken quite a bit about rhino body language today, everyone. And just that behavior, that movement there of him letting his head hang down, quite indicative of the fact that he's now relaxed. That wind is now in our favor again. And just as I say that, it changes direction a little bit and he looks towards us once more. But talking about, I suppose, dispositions of rhinos, it also comes down to individuals. Yogeshwar, you're asking if after mating, if the male rhino will separate from the female? Yogeshwar, yes. He will play no part in the raising of the female's offspring, at least no direct part. Her home range might be within his territory, and he might therefore indirectly keep other rhino bulls out of the area. But he won't help with raising the calf. And with black rhino, it's typical that they'll court for quite some time, just like with white rhinos. And there's often quite a couple of mating events that happen during their courtship. But once that's all over and the male is sure that he's mated with her, he'll move off and leave her. And then he'll carry on with his life, patrolling his territory, looking for other females, keeping out other bulls, until he finds another female in estrus. But I was going to say, speaking about rhino disposition, it comes down to individuals' behavior as well. And there are some black rhino I've encountered here at Ambient Pinda that at the faintest whiff of a human or of a vehicle, the faintest sound of a vehicle, they turn and run for the nearest cover. And then on the flip side of that, there's rhinos that I've encountered that couldn't care less about the presence of a vehicle and will fall asleep a couple of yards from the front of the vehicle. And I suppose it comes down to the ones that I had those kind of encounters with are often really old bulls that are just large and super confident and not fazed by our presence. The same bull though I've once watched, or the same bull I've once watched walk over a spot where someone had walked on foot, and they had been on foot trying to track down a pride of lions, and we watched him cross the road, and about half an hour later we followed this black rhino as he crossed the exact same spot of the road, and he walked over that spot where the person had stepped, and he smelled the ground, and as he smelled it, it was like he had sniffed
ammonia. You know how they do that test to make sure if you're unconscious or not? They do it with rugby players and American football players to see if a person's faking being unconscious. And that smell of ammonia makes you kind of like jump up in the air. That's exactly how this rhino reacted to smelling that human on the ground there. And he immediately like whirled around and started snorting and huffing and looking all over the place. And then, in the same breath, that rhino was completely uncaring of the presence of the vehicle there. But what an amazing sighting it's been with these black rhino. Awesome to have set out to look for them and to have found them and to have gotten to spend so much time with them this afternoon. I think Craig and I are going to leave them though, seeing as they're not really doing too much just yet. I'm sure later they'll start to move off and go and feed.
Great. So we come to this position of a leopard, who I think must be Talamba, who was called in by one of the guide, and we in not far away from where Tandy was seen, I think, just slightly north of there, but in the same ravine area, which is we in Mlowati. So I'm gonna keep on her, trying to follow her, see if we can get a visual. It's in a drainage line, so I'm gonna go uphill, see if we get a better view there of her. Talamba, amazing. Those two, her mother. Here and there. So cool. So I'm gonna stay here to see what happened.
Unbelievable moment here. Corky, I haven't seen her in so long, just walked past Tandy and didn't see her but could smell her. It was incredible. She was about 2 meters away from the car, just smelling. She knows there's a leopard here. And I can't scientifically prove this, but I'm convinced she can identify each leopard separately. I'm convinced. And she's got a huge injury on her left elbow. I'm sorry, I'm just helping another one get directions. So yes, on her left elbow at the front leg, there's a massive injury and she's limping slightly. So I have not seen Corky since returning to Djuma, and she's fine, she's walking, but she's definitely injured. She walked right past Tandy, but you could smell her. I wish I could prove this. I wish I could do a study that would prove that hyenas can identify which leopard they're following through some sort of unique chemo code. They'll know this is female leopardess Tandy. Of course, they will not know the name Tandy, but they'll know, this is the older leopardess, yes. This is Talamba, yes, we're following Tingana. I'm convinced, but of course I can't prove it. There's no way that animals that rely on their nose so heavily and live in a sort of chemosensory world will not be able to know that. Following leopards out here in the Sabi Sands is a crucial part of a hyena's life. Yes, they are scavengers, but that's okay. So many animals scavenge, and it's necessary. It's an ecosystem function that we, even as humans, could not survive without. Not all ecosystem heroes wear capes. They really are heroes. They clean up an environment. They do a job that no one else wants to do, just like the vultures. They're not liked for it, and it gives them a bad reputation. But hyenas clean up the environment, remove disease, remove parasites, remove decay and rotten flesh for all of us. And an ecosystem would not survive without it. So living in a chemosensory world, following leopards, yes, they steal kills. Yes, they kill one another's offspring, which is the hard truth of nature. It's also important that they survive too, and they do the function of cleaning up the remains that no one else wants to. Now Now it's 5:40 here in Juma. And I'm just only starting to feel a little bit of relief from this intense heat that we've had all day. I do wonder if Tandy will feel it too and if she will start to move. Sorry, you'll have to go again with that going. I think we're in a dodgy signal area. Girl, I've never seen a leopard go into the water. Jaguars, of course, do. They jump into the water all the time, especially to hunt crocodiles, caiman crocodiles. But Jess, I've never seen a leopard get in. It's funny, we were just talking about that. It would be so nice to come across a water body and see a leopard just lolling about, having a spa day. But I think it would just leave them too vulnerable. I think it would feel fantastic. I think they would love it. But I've personally never seen it. But they can swim. Most animals can. Fish can, believe it or not. No, I'm only joking. Most mammals can. Humans are primates, or the really only sort of mammals, at least, that have to learn how to swim. To get swimming lessons. So they will be able to swim. But I've never seen it. Okay, we're going to sit here and enjoy the evening getting cooler.
Alrighty guys, so quite a bit of bat-eared fox activity in this particular area. We've actually just seen 6 different individuals. That is weird to see them out this time of the afternoon. They have noticed us and they're a little shy. There's one going there under the tree way in the distance. But it must be a case of high insect activity currently, and that's causing them to, be active so early in the afternoon. Typically speaking, you won't find a bat-eared fox moving at the moment. They should be in their burrows, which is quite cool, to see that sometimes we think wrong. And that they just, do whatever they want to. But like I said, must be high, I want to say termite activity, where the bat-eared foxes, predominantly they feed on termites, because they are such good diggers and they use those huge ears to listen for insect movement underneath the surface of the earth and then dig to get to it. They do go for termites quite often. They do go for beetles and scorpions and those types of things as well. But about 75% of their diet consists of termites. High in protein, so very nutritious for them. It makes sense for them to do so. And there's far more termites out here than there are scorpions. But yeah, very interesting for me to see that they're active now. It is still very warm. So, for them to be busy foraging at the moment, they're spending quite a bit of energy, which is why I'm saying I think that the insect activity currently around here is very good, because otherwise it wouldn't be cost effective for them to actually be out at the moment. I just jumped off the car because when I'm moving in the car, it's going to be shaking quite a bit. So Joy just had a question, why are bat-eared foxes not true foxes? Joy, I'm going to lie to you if I tell you the direct answer. If I had to say, just by looking at their behavior, would them be more foraging than hunting? If you think of something like a Cape fox, they hunt more mice and those types of things. And they've got more of that shape. The bat-eared fox has got more of the round ears, whereas the typical fox-shaped ears is a rounded one, but with a pointy part on top. But yeah, I'm actually not sure. You know, when it comes to these classifications of animals, the smallest thing, like we spoke about it earlier, something as small as retractable claws or not will put you closely related to a house cat or not. So I'm going to lie to you if I tell you the direct answer. I'm not going to try and give you an answer. The only thing that I can think about is their behavior, and it must be a physiological difference within them as well. You know, maybe foot structure or something like that causes them to not be classified as true foxes. Interesting, though, that they are calling them foxes then, because, and like I said, a lot of their behavior does coincide with like a Cape fox, which is classified as a true fox. So I'm not sure, and I don't want to lie to you, but we're just very happy to have them around here, and you know, they are just the cutest. All of them, the bat-eared foxes, the Cape foxes, and then part of the hyena family, the aardwolf. They should have babies popping out of their den sites soon. So your heart is going to melt when you see that. The smallest little, cutest little things. Absolutely stunning. So yeah, hopefully we're actually heading to an area that was my plan, to go down this road and see where we've seen a pair of bat-eared foxes quite regularly at a burrow system, and just make sure that there's not any puppies popping out yet. It is still a little warm, but by the time that we would have gotten there, it's probably around 20 minutes later, so there's a possibility of them being out at that time. So hopefully we will. I think what we are going to do is start moving on, though. Those bat-eared foxes has now moved into the distance, so we're going to start moving on and see if we can't find that second set of bat-eared foxes, to see if their pups aren't really out. They're starting to cool down slightly. The breeze is also picking up just a little bit, and I can feel it is a cooler breeze, which is great because that'll cool down the evening for us as well. But yeah, for the meantime, we're going to head that way. Always nice to have the bat-eared foxes out and about during the daytime. As I said, they are quite nocturnal, so they typically only come out at night, so always a treat to see them during the day. But guys, if we find something interesting there by that den side, we'll let you know, okay?
Great, so we still have a visual of this leopard. She's now on move, and as you can see how thick it is, but you know, every now and then trying to reach her, but she's still doing her own little bit of a hunt. Sometimes we have to step back a bit, but I'm going to move forward so we get another visual. Was a dwarf mongoose in front of her, so it looks like they just ran just before she spotted them. And then she's gonna probably pop out in front of us here. It's kind of a day where they're probably gonna get up to move so much because the temperature is slightly slowed down and all the heat, it's gone. Closer look to her. She'll pop out there on the other side of the mound. She's gonna park here. She's gonna pop out right on the right inside of us. There she is. So I'm going to also try and reposition turn around again. So she's moving in the direction of Treehouse Dam from Mamba Road Junction. So it looks like she's highly mobile west. And then Tandy was seen, Gary Main and Lowati. And there's still a lot going in there, and looks like there's no cooperate anymore. She's independent, Lamba, and just do her own thing. So I'm not gonna go anywhere. I'm gonna stay in this sighting here.
Craig and I have driven up onto a big hill overlooking the valley below. We've come out of the plains and we're starting to make our way slowly back into the mountains that are further to the east and to the north of the open plains. What a magnificent vista in front of us. These mountains in front of us, the start of the Ubombo Mountains. Look at how densely vegetated they are. Lots of big trees. And lots of bushveld candelabras, or kind of euphorbia that's growing on the side of the hillside there. And then down in the valley below, look at those bright yellow fever trees. Trying to find water or trying to find landmarks. Fever trees often indicating that there's a stream or a river, or at least a river bed nearby. And we're just sitting here and we're listening, and we're also using our binoculars and scanning. Because somewhere on the other side of that ridgeline there in front of us is where we last saw that pride of lions yesterday afternoon, the ones that had killed that young giraffe. And if you joined us this morning, you may remember we were saying that carcass had been pretty much polished off. And the tracks, didn't find tracks. We saw tracks going a little bit away from the carcass, but couldn't see where exactly they went. So I don't think those lions have gone too far. And if we just sit up here and listen for a bit, now with the afternoon cooling off, no doubt those lions would have been tucked away in a thicket, and they might come out here into the open when it gets a bit cooler. Benny, you're asking if there are any leopards here on Pinda. Benny, yes, there are. We've got a healthy population of leopards spread out across the reserve. We just don't get to show them to you very often, Benny, because we often have difficulty filming in the areas where they are most common. Typically speaking, leopards in general, being animals that like to be concealed, they tend to stick to the thicker bush. And also just look at how mountainous this is. So lots of places for leopards to hide, lots of thickets for them to shelter in, and from which they can stalk their prey. But yes, we do have a very healthy population of leopards. And Pinda is actually the home of one of the longest leopard projects that has ever kind of been undertaken. And it was over 10 years. And there's still kind of follow-up research ventures that take place nowadays every couple of years. And initially it was a camera trap survey to try and figure out what the population density of leopards was on Pinda. This area, before it became a game reserve that it is now, before it became the game reserve it is now, was made up of old farmland and old hunting farms. And because of that, the leopard population in the area was initially relatively low, and also quite unstable, in that it was made up of a lot of young animals. There weren't very many big dominant males holding territories, and so it was made up of lots of younger individuals. But now, as the reserve has grown and as this land has had time to be returned back to its natural state, the population has kind of normalized again, and we've now got a very stable and very healthy population of leopards across the reserve, with of course the big males holding territories and defending their territories against other males and against interloping males coming from neighboring areas, females holding their territories, with males, of course male and female territories overlapping quite a bit. And then all the offspring being produced on the reserve having to disperse either to new parts of the reserve or sometimes even off of the reserve. And there was an amazing study that was done on one particular young male here at Untitled. And as part of this 10-year study, he was radio collared when he came of the age when he was going to disperse from his mother naturally and go off in search of his new territory. And it was to try and understand where these leopards go once they leave their mothers here. Of course, Pinda, not quite like the greater Kruger area that's just got millions and millions of hectares for animals to disperse over. Sometimes here, I mean, there are lots of other game reserves around us and natural areas around us, but we wanted to see where exactly this leopard would go. And he ended up walking a massive distance, if I'm not mistaken, in excess of about 500 kilometers or so, somewhere around there, that he ended up walking from Untitled. He first went towards the coast and then to another protected area there, and then cut north from there, and carried on walking up there from there towards a neighboring country called Swaziland, and then cut up towards Kruger. And unfortunately, something must have happened to him somewhere kind of around there, the southern Mozambique, Swaziland, Kruger area. Unfortunately, his collar was discovered, and it was apparent that he had been killed somehow. But amazing to see just how far that young leopard dispersed. And also how, I suppose, yeah, it shows the importance of protected areas, having lots of protected areas close by to each other. Sorry, Yogesha, your question was, you were asking if there are any meerkats here at Untitled. Yogesha, no, there aren't. Meerkats tend to prefer much drier habitat, like the interior of South Africa. So you'll find them obviously up at Tswalu Kalahari. And you find them a little bit to the north and to the west of where I come from originally, Johannesburg. If you go up there's a province called the Northwest Province, which borders on Botswana. You can see them there as well. And then, of course, the Northern Cape, the Karoo, all the more arid, slightly more arid areas is where you find them. We get similar, I suppose, relatives of the meerkat, other kinds of mongoose here. We get banded mongoose. We get big groups of banded mongoose that move across the reserve, and they're very similar to meerkats in terms of their behavior. They also live in big groups and sleep all together at night, and they forage together. They have little sentries that keep watch for potential danger, and if they see anything like a predator of some sort, like an eagle or a leopard or something, then they'll sound a little alarm call and they'll all go scurrying. They tend to live in very thick bush where they can use the thickets to their advantage to escape from potential danger. And I remember not long ago I had quite an enjoyable experience with a group of banded mongoose. I was out on foot walking along, and I could hear them foraging in the bush in front of me. And so I just sat down and I sat very still behind a bush and I didn't move. And after about 5 minutes, these banded mongoose came feeding in my direction. And before long, there was maybe about 30 of them all around me in kind of a semicircle in front of me. And it was just the most fantastic experience, them all sitting around me and feeding and busy contact calling to each other as they foraged. Unfortunately, one eventually lifted his head and I couldn't stare at them any longer, and I got the heebie-jeebies and looked over my shoulder to see if there was anything watching me, and that sudden movement gave away my presence, and they sounded the alarm call and ran away.
No, everyone, it's not Tandy and it's not Tlalamba, it is Miss Kuchava, Tandy's other daughter. Yes, it's been all about the sort of Tandy lineage tonight. Now, I'm not in the best position. I'm going to slightly move. We're just going to get a little bit of a better view of her. So, of course, Tlalamba is Tandy's daughter, but so is Kuchava. Kuchava means scared, because because she used to be very, very skittish around the vehicles, but she no longer is. As leopards get older, they do become more habituated. She's a beautiful leopardess. She's also got a cub, a Bing Bang, but I haven't seen that cub in a long time. It's a male, and it's also very, very skittish. She's hungry. She's hunting. Well, not hunting, but scanning the horizon for food. Very petite, very slender. Someone asked me the weight of Tandy earlier. Could not possibly be getting, but really, female leopards are very, very petite. She looks really hungry. So we're on Torchwood. We're on the eastern side of Torchwood on power lines, and not too far away from Tandy. Tandy's territory borders Kuchava's, mother and daughter. So although they won't have afternoon tea together, like me and my mother do, it is better for them to be sort of rubbing territorial boundaries with each other than strange leopardesses who could essentially be competition and not on the same bloodline. If it's your own bloodline, then there's benefits there straight away. It's your lineage, it's your DNA. But Kuchava looks remarkably similar to Tandy. I know we've not had a great shot of her face at the minute, but they do look remarkably similar. They get called in for each other all the time. I once got called in to Kuchava, and when I got there, it was Tandy, yes. Everyone says, how can you recognize leopards? But really, once you start to get to know them, you can. Just like you recognize humans, you can recognize leopards. You can see she's got a little bit of a saggy tummy too. Once a female gives birth, that really starts to show that they have given birth, whereas Tlalamba does not have this. She's not giving birth. Leopards are truly exquisite. And when Juma decides to deliver, it rains. They're the most exquisite animals out here. They really are. Solitary hunters. A lot of people ask me when is the best time to come to visit the bush, and it's a very tough question because the two seasons are so different. Don't really have a spring and an autumn here. That sort of gradient is really not steep as it is in places like the US and the UK. But really, when you find an animal like a leopard in summer, their coat against the greenery out here, nothing beats it. It is more challenging to find predators, to find any animals really. But for photography and just pure beauty, summer wins. Okay, I think we've lost views of her now. We're going to have to move in order to keep up with our cat. This is my first legal time in Torchwood. It's very exciting. I just want to check. Have we got comms? We have. Okay, I do not have any comms.
Beautiful. So we managed to get into this thicket. We still got our beautiful leopard. And what she does, she's always investigating any of this tree around here. And she'll sniff around and always, doing a flimin grimace, which is trying to probably to decode the message or suck in the air into this Jacob organ sense. It's probably that maybe it's another leopard that was around here. I know Tandy, she was also not far away, but maybe it could be another leopard. Where this area sometimes, Simbui come in and out in this area as well. See how she rises her tail up since the squirrel was giving a little bit of alarm call. Hear the squirrels. A lot of time when a leopard gets spotted by birds or squirrel or anything smaller, they always rise their tail up, so showing that they're not actually hunting on that animal. Meanwhile, they are actually can hunt them. So let me keep up with her so we don't lose the visual. She's actually very much on a mission this time. Like I said, the weather is great for her to be able to do that. It's been actually a very hot day. Many of the leopards or cat species, they will actually be just resting all day until this time of the day. Scratch the ground, back legs, urinate and move on. Looks like she's going to take us again into that drainage line. What we did, we have to come around on the far side to get into this bank here. Let's see if we can be able to do the same. Yeah, she just dropped into the drainage line system. Yeah, it's a Franklin's, but she's moving away from now. She's in the middle of the drainage line. Gemma, age 12. So the reason for the leopards, or white tip on the end of their tail, is that they are mainly, it's so important, most especially for the female when they have a young one. So it's for these young ones to be able to follow behind the mother. But sometimes they use a warning. The tail is a warning when they come across each other, same species. And the tail is kind of like a way of communication when they're threatened. They wag their tails, swing the tail every now and then. But, as we saw when she was walking past, these birds were actually trying to give alarm call for her. And then for her to be able to rise her tail up, it was that, to warn the birds or let the birds know that she's not actually hunting them, even though they saw her. So that's the only reason for the white end of the tail. So I'm not actually gonna leave this area. I'm still gonna try to get on the other side of the bank.
Alrighty guys, so we found 3 more bat-eared foxes. It does look like it is youngsters, these ones, so ones that got pushed out just on the previous set of bat-eared foxes that we showed you. That question that we had about why they're not classified as true foxes. I had a look, and it's because of their teeth structure, that they were initially not put or set in the true fox category, and they were actually considered to be a whole subspecies by themselves. However, recent studies have shown that there's more, that they are actually very closely related to true foxes. So just to answer that question for you, that is why let me go a little forward, see if we can get a better view on them again. But that's why they were initially not classified as true foxes. There's one out there. I'm just past this clump of thicket. These little foxes now, with them being quite adults or having to fend for themselves, they can sometimes be seen out in the open during the day. Now he's being spiteful. David, if you look in the shade bush over here, see there's one lying there. So, yeah, there you can see the one, guys. They're just ducking behind the shade of these 3 thorns at the moment. So, trying to hide from us a little bit. There, he's moving again. But like I was saying, with them being still relatively young, they are going to be active at odd times of the day. It will take them a little while just to, properly figure out all the tricks of the trade. But always nice to see these guys.
I think that may be the last visuals we just had of Kuchava. Off she goes. She's walking right along the fence of the Torchwood Lodge. She might pop on. We're getting some visuals. She's very hungry. There you go. She's going to pop out. You see, she's in much sort of finer condition than Tandy. Remember what we discussed earlier? You can just gauge that she's a younger leopardess just by the physical condition, the ears. She's definitely hungry. When leopards move like that and they stop ever so often to listen, to smell, they're trying to sense what prey is around them. I think I can go forward just a little bit for you, and we may get a better visual. Now she's walking off and we're probably not going to follow her, so this is the last visual that we'll have of Kuchava. What a wonderful afternoon drive of leopards. So we are just going to sit here and watch Kuchava wander off.
Indeed, Kuchava the leopard. Isn't that amazing? So we still got a beautiful little Kalamba here moving right along the road. She's now changing directions, moving north. And then thought that she's going to come out of the treehouse pen, but not at the moment. She's actually totally changed direction, heading north. And she might actually pop out there by the Rhino den, because we're not far from there. And we just checked, it was not active, which is a good thing. And I'm gonna keep up with her, so more than one vehicle here, but we're always trying to make it sure that we don't lose the visual of her, and just to get to see how far she's gonna take us into. She was kind of like painting, but I suppose it was the temperatures we had today makes a lot of cats comes in very much exhausted. Not easy anymore, just to able to take it easy for themselves until now, where it's cooler. We still got her on the right, left-hand side. She's just walking parallel with us. Neil is going to take us there now, right? She's going to pop out somewhere right there. That's it. I'm going to try up again. So in the low field, everyone, everything here is now covered. Trees, falling logs, all that. Grass is taking places. Many of time, cats, you're more likely to drive past them, and nothing really is open here. But we're so lucky with this llama. She always, every now and then, coming out of the bush. Gusher, good afternoon. Yes, they do have a very much good vision at night. In the day also it's great, but at night, and that's where they see, but not as much as in the day. Where at night vision, it's completely different compared to during the day. We're also different to most other prey species such as an impalas and that. These are come very strong night vision at night. Just can't tell what it's like. Probably very much stronger, even kind of a night infrared. But for them to be able to hunt at night, they see kind of a silhouette and also sight, hearing, smells, both involved in the same time. So it's comfortable for them to actually able to move during the day when they want to, especially when this kind of breeze taking places and we'll get to mobile. It wasn't easy for any of cats today during the day to able to hunt. And many of them, we found they have failed quite a lot to able to come succeed last night because, of course, they work on their own energy. It becomes impossible sometimes to able to come succeed every single day. They have to work hard. Sometimes they prey on amount of small animals such as mongoose, squirrels. That then is nothing for them. And then the next hour, that animal is got to carry on a hunt again continuously until they get enough size of the prey that they may actually call it a day or sometimes 2 days when it's like impalas. I'm keeping up with this leopard. I'm not going anywhere right now. I'm going to take you over another live safari.
Welcome back to Ambient Pinder. You've joined us just in time. We found a pair of mating leopards, everybody. I can't believe it. We've just been talking about leopards on Pinder and how we hardly ever get to show them to you. I hope you just got a glimpse of that big male stepping off of the rock there. Looks like he's heading down into the bush, leaving the female up on the rock. We've watched them mate twice in the last couple of minutes. And it was actually the sound that alerted us to their presence. You could hear the sound of them mating up on the rocks there. Now, unfortunately for now, we can't really get up there. So this is the best view that we're going to have for the time being. But see the female still lying up there on the rocks? The male looks like he's moved off a little bit, so I don't think it'll be too long before she gets up and goes to follow along behind him. She won't want him to go too far away. And it's been amazing to watch. It's always been, as is typical with leopard courtship, it's the female that goes to incite the mating with the male. She'll go up to him. We've been watching her rubbing her back frantically under his chin and almost like tickling his chin with her tail, trying to entice him to mate. There you go. She's busy grooming herself. Sure, I know it's a bit of a tough view, everybody, but it's so exciting. If they do mate again, it's quite a loud sound. We should be able to hear them from here. So, Jockey, you're asking what happens to leopards when they become old and they can't hunt? They unfortunately die. So when they become too old to move around and they can't catch their own prey, they'll often try to, or they can't catch their usual prey, they'll try to catch smaller, slower things like lizards and tortoises or terrapins. If there's termite alate eruptions, they'll feed on those. They'll literally feed on anything that they can possibly get their paws onto, so to speak. Carrion, they might try to steal carcasses from other smaller leopards, but ultimately it'll eventually get to the stage where they will die. If they don't get, eventually of not being able to get enough food, if they don't get taken out by another predator before that. We've unfortunately lost, I can't see where either of the leopards are now. I think they've just come down from that rocky face there into those woods there. And it's going to be pretty tough to try and relocate them there. But that was so exciting. I can't believe it. And we were just talking about how we hardly ever get to show leopards here at Pinda, and then two of them in the same frame. And my goodness, it was an enormous male. Absolutely massive male leopard with a huge dewlap. That big flap of skin under his throat. But I'm fairly certain that they've gone into that woodland there beneath that rock. So I think what we might do is we might start up and try and get a better view there of those leopards, or try to at least get another view of them. It's going to be tough, and it's definitely not guaranteed, but let's try. Hopefully we come right.
We have two crowned hornbills. Amazing. Well done, well done. What a landing. What a shot. We were actually talking about these birds around the dinner table last night. Marcel, James and I. Okay, they've crossed into Cheetah, but we will not. But we are going to go forward and still get them. They're hunting, they're catching something. And what we were talking about last night is how ferocious they are. They will eat anything. Wait, they're just here somewhere. Sometimes it can get a bit flighty with the car. Here we go. Love these birds. What a drive today. Makes up for a few quiet drives. I'm trying to identify them, male or female. They are obvious, although they look sort of the same from the outskirts. The males and females are different. The female normally has a small blue patch under her chin, only if she's the dominant female. And any immature birds look completely different. They are yellow in the face, believe it or not bright red. They don't have their makeup on. I'm sure they turn red at about 3 years old, give or take. That's the age when they start to change. They're very endangered birds, and it's a lucky sighting when we see them out here. Completely related to the yellow-billed hornbills that we see, and the red-billed and the grey-billed. Hunting. They can eat anything, even scrub hares. Scrub hares are quite large out here. Squirrels, huge snakes. They can regularly hunt snakes. Tortoises. They really are incredible. They can break the tortoise shell open using that huge black beak of theirs. Mac, you're saying you love ground hornbills. I know, me too. They're really endangered birds. And that's why when I see them, I just always remind myself that it's actually a really special sighting. We are starting to lose visual of them, though. You can just see them walking through the thicket, trying to find whatever they can find on the ground. Now, breeding is really irregular. Although they're monogamous, I mean, as we've discussed at length a lot the past few days, monogamy in birds doesn't really mean much, but they are monogamous. They are said to sort of only produce a chick once every 6 years. And that's why their populations have become so endangered. I didn't catch that name, but you're saying it looks like a half vulture, half chicken. Well, I guess I see where you're going with that. Looks like a hornbill to me, but I see where you're going with that. Half vulture, half chicken. I'm probably never going to forget that. What a lovely drive it's been, and the ground hornbills really top it off. With a really large wingspan, you can normally spot them in flight. It always takes me a minute or two to think, what is that bird? Because the wingspan's as large as most of the raptors out here. And I can never quite pinpoint what bird it is. It always takes me some time. I'm just going to go forward to see if we can get another view for you. I can see them through there. Are you able to get that? I don't know if this is going to be possible. Let's try. Possibly not. Fiona, yes they do. They do eat lizards. They eat everything, really. I mean, huge long snakes they will take down. Lizards. I've even seen a photo of a ground hornbill attacking a monitor lizard. I don't know whether it was successful or not. It was just a still image. But really, they're ferocious carnivores. And I'm not sure we're going to get another view, I'm afraid. I'll try one more time by just swinging my vehicle around. No, they've really wandered off into the thicket. At least we got to see them in flight, though. It's not up because they're ground hornbills. They're always found on the ground. It's rare to see them in flight, but we got it. That's it, I'm afraid, everyone. We're definitely not going to get another view of the hornbills, I'm afraid. There we go. Tandy, Tlalamba, Kutrava, Mrs. Wig and Chick, yet to be named, will be named soon, and ground hornbills. Not a bad day for Sabi Sands. You can see, I'm sure, just how thick everything is. The vegetation is definitely bloomed into summer. And I'm just going to pull up here to give you the last little view of the sun setting. Now, we're not going to be able to see the sun, but I'm just going to pull up here and give you a view of the beautiful skyline, the pastel colours, the lilacs, the pinks, orange, yellow. My favourite time of day, sunset. Just before we go into the complete darkness of night. I'm just going to let you enjoy this for a moment. Now, sadly, it has came to that time of night where we must say goodbye. A fantastic afternoon live safari across Africa has came to an end. But, as always, we are back out again in the morning, so please do join us. Thank you for all your comments and questions. Good night.